Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today. We will start this with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Fort, could you lead us?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item is recognition of special awards. We're going to talk about Meet Us at the Square event. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Really excited to be before you all today, and I will be very quick as I know you have a lot of business to get to. But we do want to take the opportunity to celebrate an event that the manager actually challenged us to create a few years ago. So before I play this really quick video, just want to stress the importance of connecting people to resources as we have continued that promise. And so Meet Us at the Square was birthed out of a challenge that the manager asked us to actually go to the people and where they are. And so 2 years ago, we had some success in October, and this past week, we actually turned it over to Housing and Neighborhoods, who does an excellent job in making sure resources are given out to the community and connecting with people. So we're going to play a quick video to celebrate that event, and then I'll turn it over to John Effenegger out of Housing and Neighborhoods to talk specifics and to thank some of our wonderful partners.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and City Council members. John Effenegger, Housing and Neighborhoods. Just wanted to say we're really lucky to have such great partners in the community. We couldn't have done this without them. We had 35 vendors representing and over 500 people attended. Really want to give a shout out to Oink and Moo. They fed 457 people for free at no cost to the city. As you all saw in the video, attendees were also able to receive free showers, haircuts, clothing, vouchers, dental screenings, hygiene kits, and get connected to other resources. We had Dega, a mobile veterinarian there, who were able to look at some of the folks' animals. And Blood Connection were giving out $50 gift cards to folks who were donating blood. Also want to thank all of our city partners who volunteered and helped make it a success, and want to give a special shout out to Raleigh's Pathways to Public Services Fellowship Program. That's a 6-month cohort-based internship program for college students and recent grads to gain professional experience in local government. And Liv Deskovich, who's standing here with me, is interning with Housing and Neighborhoods through that program, and she really did all of the heavy lifting on making this event a success, so I really want to thank her. And then finally, just wanted to share one of the more touching moments I had at the event. I had a gentleman come up to me who, after he had got his hair cut and had received a shower, told me that he had never expected that he would end up in the position he was in, and that he was actively looking for work and felt a little more optimistic about his prospects after getting a haircut and a shower. So I think it'd be great if we could offer these, build on this event for future events and get to the point where we can connect those folks at the event to housing. So thank you all.
So we also want to shout out all the other departments that made sure it was a success as well. So if you look back in your agenda packet, as well as our website, raleighnc.gov/housing, you will see all of the major partners that helped to make this event happen. So actually want to give a round of applause for all City of Raleigh employees, because we couldn't have done it without trash cans, without transportation, without the connection with resources to community engagement, as well as our communications department, solid waste services. I could list all of our City of Raleigh departments to make this a success. So thank you all so much. And as John alluded to, we're going to try to make sure we have a cadence of schedule to make sure people know where to meet us at the square and where. And so we thank you all for your continued support.
Thank you. I just want to thank all of you and all our partners for pulling this together. I know when I went to the last year, the veterinary services really touched me, because people, what they said to me is, I can't be sure that my dog, who's my companion, my faithful companion, gets the care that they need. And one woman started crying. She was so happy and relieved. So the work that you do really does have a lot of meaning and helps so many. So thank you. Okay. Next, we have our consent agenda. One item has been pulled. That is F3. Could I have a motion to approve the remainder? Motion to approve. Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. The item that was pulled is the MSD for the Blue Ridge Corridor. This would have been the second reading of the ordinance. Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention I really value the potential services of a Blue Ridge MSD and want West Raleigh to have strong planning as this area grows. I sincerely appreciate the work to date of the Blue Ridge Corridor Alliance and city staff who have conducted engagement on this potential MSD. But out of a need for further stakeholder engagement, I motion that we do not create the Blue Ridge Corridor Municipal Service District at this time.
Seconded by Councilmember Fort. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. I think, too, one of the things that we need to ask the organizers is continued community engagement, so people are better informed about what an MSD can do, and also the services need to be looked at. So I would encourage them to do that. Okay. All right. Next, we have public comment. We have 13 speakers signed up. 3 minutes per person, so if we could set the alarm, please, thank you. And I'm going to ask the first 3 speakers to come up: Curtis Johnson, Octavia Rainey, and Hannity Ali. 1, 2, 3, if you see your names up there.
Ready? Hey, first and foremost, I would like to thank the council for you hearing this. But as you see, my presentation up on the board, I called the Raleigh Police to defuse a situation. This administration, the administration before, and the mayor nor the police department has the right to just obstruct justice. This case has never been disposed in the court of law. If you look another screen, there should be another screen of the trespass right here. This case has never been disposed of in the courts, and that's where we have justice. Now, I've come here time and time again just seeking justice. I'm not seeking anything extra out the ordinary. I just want justice for this wrongdoing. These officers never even took this woman to jail before a magistrate to face justice. So I need to know where the disposition of this case lies and justice for this injustice. And it's mentally been wearing on me ever since it's happened. I haven't had any rest. I've lost weight. I'm going through therapists for my psychological damages. It's just, I don't know what else to say other than either the administration doesn't care about justice for all and the laws of the land is for everybody, or is it just me that they're singling out? I don't know, but I'm here today and I'm asking if there's any civil rights attorney that's seeing this, please give me a call or get in contact with me, because I'm really ready to move forward with getting justice for this situation. Thank you very much.
Okay. I just wanted to note too that Councilmember Branch is absent and excused. He was not feeling well. So just to note that. Thank you. Speakers 2 and 3.
Good afternoon. First, I would like to thank Mary Ann Baldwin. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just want you to remember that 9 years ago, I had 6 murders in my neighborhood, 3 youth in College Park and 3 youth in Idlewild. And it was really serious. But today, you don't have that number of youth being killed. So it's a break, but you have 50 gangs in Wake County alone and Raleigh. You have to step up to the plate now. You must protect the teens because they are our most valuable asset. So you must protect the teens. Second thing I want to talk about is that I teach seniors how to ride the bus. We don't know yet when we will get our IDs. I have 25 that's new, that's over 65. So you said that on July 1st, you will be charging for the bus. They don't even know. They call down here about IDs, but in that department, they don't even know. So nobody knows about when you can have your picture taken before July 1st to ride the bus. And my seniors are very concerned about that because they said that the city should get the announcement out here where you can go and take your picture if you're 65 and over. The third thing I want to talk about is that when I take my seniors to Gabe's, they have to stand up. They have to stand. The bench out at Gabe's has been broke for 4 years. I have told David Eatman 3 times to fix that bench. It is not fixed yet. So I don't know what they are waiting on, but Saturday I had 15 seniors and every last one of them was standing. They was too afraid to sit on the bench, and I don't blame them because it was all shaky and all that stuff. But across the street from that, there's a brand new cat bench, bus station, whatever you call it. So why couldn't they come across the street and fix that one? See, something is wrong with the equity here. Something is really wrong. So you have to look at that. And it is concerning to me. My seniors had to stand because there was nowhere for them to sit. And I think that we can do better in that department when we report to the transit that they need to fix a stop, they need to get on it immediately and fix it, not wait 4 years. And that bench is right there at Gabe's.
Thank you. If we could have speaker 4, 5, and 6 come up. Oh, is Paul Callum here? All right. After this talk, if you could come up and just talk about the rollout of the fairs. I think that will be helpful. Some people can get answers. Go on.
Today I speak directly to Mary Ann Baldwin. That's a tongue twister. No words, Mayor. You still have the Israeli flag on your profile picture. You're that proud? 8 months into the genocide, you're still representing this. Do you even know there are more than 15,000 Palestinian children killed? And that's only counting the ones physically seen. There's just airstrikes just dropping on houses with families and kids. 15,000 minimum. I give you and every other American not exploring alternate media platforms the benefit of the doubt. Actually, no, I don't. Because we're grown-ups and we have a mind to think. I'm also speaking to members Corey Branch, Stormy Forte, and Jonathan Melton. Pretty disappointed in you three. It goes without saying. But I will say, do you think the Pride supporters are supporting the white supremacist Zionist? No, they're with us. And a true, authentic, genuine Muslim knows they are not to judge how someone lives their life. That judgment's left for God. There was a man yelling at me at the protests, and he was saying something to the effect of, "Go back to Palestine." And I yelled back, "I was there. I know how it feels to go through checkpoints. I know how it feels to be scared of Israelis and their unpredictable behaviors with no accountability. Now they're training our people here, and that's scary." That was the West Bank, still like hell, but nothing like the hell in Gaza. And then I thought, gladly I'll go back, because I'm not happy with American politics. And that makes me more patriotic because I want the country to be great, but it is not. And it has choices, and it continues to choose horribly. But the problem is when I go back, I'm a visitor because I have to go through hoops to try and get citizenship. Whilst we have the birthright trip that allows 18 to 26-year-old of, I guess, just you have to be Jewish faith, and they'll give you a free ride to go into Israel to then what? Displace a Palestinian family? So that we're back here in America to then get told by people to go back to Palestine. And if you get citizenship, you have to go through checkpoints, and you're never as free as you were with an American citizenship. And I say that with reserve because I want you to know that any person with Arabic-looking name will always be treated inferiorly. If I hurt you, get over it, wake up, and stop this madness. Vote for a ceasefire now and permanently.
Paul is going to update us, and then we'll do the next
Hey,
speaker.
so Paul Callan, Transportation. So thanks, Octavia, for bringing that to our attention. So currently we're working with our third-party vendor and our IT department on getting this set up ASAP. So I'll definitely reach out to you and let you know, because this hadn't been the first one. So we're working on this hard to get this taken care of.
Just to set everybody's minds at ease, you're not going to charge fares until
That's
this
right.
is in place.
I just want everybody to be at ease. We've said it's just going to be a soft start on this. So again, I don't want everybody to get worked up on this. So we'll work through these issues here. And related to the bus shelter, the bus seat, we'll go ahead and take care of that as well. So again, thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Do you have that location?
We do.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Okay, speaker 4, 5, and 6.
Good afternoon, Sarah Quadri, Raleigh resident. Wow, got lots of time today with 3 minutes. Left my phone with my speech in there, but I guess I can wing it with all that time I've got on my hands, not trying to cut all the prepositions out to make it to that 1 minute mark. But one thing that I've been noticing when we speak, and we speak with individuals on the street, is this wrong assumption that people have. And I mean, it's in the word assumption, don't assume. That when we ask for our police not to be trained by a military? Like, why do we need our police to have tactics that a military needs? Are we in a war zone? Sometimes it does feel like that for those that wear a hijab that are Muslim or minorities, because we do know it's a difference in how we get policed. But that does not discount for that we don't see the police officers that we deal with that do have morals and obligations and follow with ethics. But that doesn't mean when you create a system that is using its money and funding training to create a militarized police, that isn't going to get infused in how you deal with the people. So that is one big ask that we've asked, that many cities across America have done, and Durham has as well. Why do we need to have these ties? Yes, currently it's vague. Raleigh Police Department says it doesn't, but why can't they just write down that we will not, and we will not do in the future? Why do we need a militarized police? And we have our budget. We have so many things. We see so many residents come in time and time and again asking for broken bench for our youth. Why do we have minimum wage at $7.25? There's no livable wage. You know, the number 4 leading cause within America for death is poverty. We're in America. Our taxes are in over the millions and billions, and we're sending billions abroad for war. Yet our citizens are dying out of poverty, even within North Carolina. And I just want to say, council has talked about many times, some council members, it's out of our hands, it's out there, it doesn't affect us. It does, especially when we have American soldiers with boots on the grounds there. They come back, we've seen this in Vietnam, we've seen this in other situations, that they come back traumatized. Why are we perpetuating this? When will we continue to learn from this? Let's all work together on this. And then, I'm not sure if I missed the link, but I would want to get in touch again about the community fridge at Moore Square. So if someone can help me figure out what the comments are for that, so I can work on that and work on helping our house population, and as well as getting equitable community funding out there, since we can't use our own taxpayer money. Free Palestine.
Diana Sims, Chris Crew. Is Diana Sims here? Chris Crew. As Nicole Williams and Kit Cahill.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The voice of him crying in the wilderness is before you again on the topic of preservation. Raleigh is not a city stopped in time, nor should it be. It's a living, breathing organism that grew on a framework designed by William Christmas in 1792. Very little vestige of this small seat of government and learning remains today. Over the centuries, the city has shown growth, blossom, fruit, and decay, as do all living things, and the traces of this cycle are valuable and instructive for future generations. During its life, wonderful processes have grown up, allowing us to flourish. Land use planning and zoning is a vital branch of this tree. Historic overlay districts and neighborhood conservation overlays are fruits of this line, as in the Unified Development Ordinance. These concepts are realized through significant public and stakeholder input focused on general welfare for generations, not for immediate gain for speculators. Our HODs and NCODs and the character of the city are threatened by piecemeal nibbling at the edges of zoning overlays for all kinds of speculative purposes. These feints are particularly prevalent around the edges of historic districts in general, and in our historic districts recognizing African American contributions to our heritage in particular. These acts are detrimental to community cohesiveness. Now it is required that those of you who have been given a trust must prove faithful. The trust bestowed on you is set forth in the comprehensive plan in the UDO, and its premises designed and adopted with considerable stakeholder input for the long run. The precepts therein should not be undone for individual convenience or gain. Last week I pointed out some low-hanging preservation fruit and asked you to use your influence with the State Properties Office to help find out why there's been such a long delay in the transfer of title of a threatened historic surplus property, and to see what solutions we may apply before it further deteriorates. I heard from Mayor Pro Tem Melton this morning, and I appreciate your looking into that. I hope the rest of you will follow up and put some pressure on the state to save this property. You have the contact information in your boxes, and I hope you will look for it. And I hope you will apply these thoughts later this afternoon as you go through some zoning variance requests that are coming before you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Nicole Williams, Kit Cahill.
Hello? Okay. So firstly, I just want to thank you so much for being on your phone while community members are voicing their concerns. Very considerate. My name is Kit. I'm a trans student at NC State. I'm speaking on my support for the LGBTQ Solidarity Resolution. June is usually a time dedicated for the queer community to reflect on how far we've come, a time to celebrate and bask in joy, because we can openly be ourselves. However, as a trans person, I fail to see the progress and I fail to feel the pride. Especially as this city council fails to show support for its own queer constituents. In years of being out as a trans person in Raleigh alone, I have spent most of my time grieving with my community, grieving because we cannot safely use the bathroom, grieving because we are unwelcome in athletics, grieving because we are not welcome to access life-saving healthcare, and grieving because the trans people around us are either being brutally murdered or are killing themselves. Every trans person I know is grieving because they have come close to losing a trans friend or they have already lost one. We are dying. Last summer, I watched several bills pass restricting my community's healthcare, banning our participation in athletics, and restricting discussions and conversations about the topic of my community in schools. This summer, I watched the Board of Governors gut DEI programs, leaving many fearful of what will come this academic year and the future of higher education in North Carolina. So how am I supposed to feel pride? How can you sit here and claim to serve the Raleigh community when instead of establishing community response teams or showing outward support for the marginalized communities in Raleigh, you instead invest more into an $8 million police budget that only 8% of people actually want? Especially when the police continue to target marginalized communities such as queer and trans people. I understand that you approved of $20,000 to the LGBTQ Center of Raleigh, and while I appreciate this, money alone is not enough. We need to know that you will outwardly support the queer and trans community, and that there is going to be work done to create safer spaces, and that you oppose legislation, hatred, and violence against the LGBTQ community in Raleigh. This resolution is not a cure to queerphobia, but it is a much-needed step in the right direction. I would like to use the remainder of my time to also speak on my support for a ceasefire resolution. I cannot stand here and speak about the genocide of trans people without speaking about the genocide of Palestinians. Today is day 256 of an ongoing genocide. I know this because I wake up every day to a new update of the horrors that Palestinians are facing, and every day I think about how yesterday's ceasefire could have prevented this. It is said that on average, 250 Palestinians are killed each day. So at the end of this hour-long session, 10 more people will have died. 10 people who could have been saved by a ceasefire. Ceasefire now and free Palestine. Thank you.
See, our next speaker has withdrawn. Could you put the names up, please? And so has speaker number 10. Speaker 11, I do have something I've been asked to read. Before the next speaker begins, I need to alert the audience that the speaker's presentation includes images that are graphic in nature and that viewers might find disturbing. Thank you.
دكاتره فيش دواء تطلع كيف من قله الدواء ولا غذاء وين الاسلام وين الاسلام اللي يقول على حاله مسلم.
This is Speaker 11. This is Mesa Soudary, Palestinian from Nazareth. I'm married to a wonderful man from Gaza. If I were in Palestine, I'll be dead for sure. Just being there and just being a Palestinian. I'm sure you must be sick of me, and if you're not, I promise you will. This is done with our tax money. I truly, from the bottom of my heart, the fourth of you who voted no for ceasefire, I say shame on you for voting no, for saying no for peace, for keeping the genocide going on. Sunday was Father's Day and Eid. Over 15,000 children were murdered and killed, slaughtered, and they couldn't celebrate Eid or Father's Day. Israel is not only responsible, but also Biden administration for arming and funding this genocide. We put Biden in the office in 2020. We will put him out this November. You are complicit as well. When you're voting no for ceasefire, that means you are saying, yes, we want to kill more. We don't want the hostages to go back. We want this to keep going because you're just supporting Zionists. Israel is telling us that 130 people higher and more valuable and equals more than 45,000 of Palestinians. They could have all the information to tell you all over in the media, and you could just believe what you're just seeing because you just want to ignore the fact that we're funding this every day from our own money. You can watch the genocide streaming every day, and I'm sure a lot of people knows this is not gonna stop unless if we stand up, all of us. Free Palestine.
William Massey has withdrawn, and Athena Wallen.
Hi there. I thought I had something more to say, and then I kind of caved in on myself with all of the things that could be said. I've talked to you about equitable use of public roadways and how that relates as a cyclist and in becoming invisible from a driver's perspective through varying things that happen on a road. And I just want to hone in on that a little bit more before recess sets in and I don't see you for a couple of months and so on. I wanted to mention some personal stories of what I experience when I ride my bike. When I ride my bike, I see school children waiting for buses, being really excited when I ring my bell. When I ride my bike, I see these squirrels almost run out in front of a car, and I ring my bell so that they turn around and run out the other way. When I am on my bike, I try to see really beautiful things because I love riding my bike. It brings me joy, and I think that sort of joy is a softness and a kindness that is needed in this world, and the accessibility of that is different for everybody. And when I come to you talking about Brookside specifically because of the proposal that was brought up, I want the equity of road use. I want this mentality that everyone deserves to be seen on the road everywhere. I want drivers to see the school children waiting on the sidewalks. I want drivers to see the squirrels. They might not do anything, but at least they could see them. Because if they could see a squirrel, then they could see a toddler bending down to pick up a ball. They can see a can rolling out into the street and safely maneuver around it instead of avoiding it and potentially colliding with something else. Because we as humans, we are nothing but errors waiting to happen. We work off of the laws and rules, and we draw up these regulations based off of studies and metrics and things that come down to measurable concepts. But as a human, I don't have that metric to say why it's important to keep at every stage, to keep drivers needing to look out for people not in cars. Because it's a mentality that I have to fight against every day. And leadership should show by example that everyone.
Okay, thank you. Brookside Drive is on the agenda today, and it appears that it will be sent to the Transportation and Transit Committee for further discussion. Thought you would like to know that. Thank you. Okay, next we have the report and recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Good afternoon, Hannah Reckow, Planning and Development. I'm joined by Blaney Miller, Chair of the Planning Commission. So as usual, we've got a forecast of upcoming holidays into the summer and the slate of already scheduled public hearings. You have a handful scheduled for the afternoon session of your July 2nd meeting, and there are currently none scheduled for the evening portion with public comment. And so here are the suggested public hearing dates for items on this report. I've got 2 for the August 20th meeting and 1 for the September 3rd evening session. First is rezoning Z8322. This is a collection of properties at Hillsborough Street and Turner Street. Currently have a mix of neighborhood mixed-use districts applied, requesting CX7, partially with a frontage. It's consistent with the future land use map and urban form map and comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission recommends approval 5-3. The opposing votes there discussed the building height requested, potential to displace the current residents and bike connectivity in the area. And the suggested hearing, again, is August 20th. There's a rezoning Z724 at 500 Rawls Drive. This is just about 8 acres, currently zoned R10, requesting RX4 CU, inconsistent with future land use map and urban form and consistent with the comprehensive plan. Planning Commission recommending approval unanimously, also suggesting the August 20th hearing for that one. Then text change TC423, digital billboards. This is a text change that the council authorized and referred to the Planning Commission for their discussion and review that would be integrated into actual drafting of the text change. The Planning Commission, after discussion, is recommending that no action be taken on the proposed text change until a series of analyses can be completed. That includes, we'll look at all the pending and adopted state legislation that pertains to billboards. So there's no hearing to schedule here on this item. And then text change TC 1A and 1B 24, which is Stormwater Design Manual and related UDO changes. They're requesting a 30-day time extension to allow the discussion to continue and staff to revise the manual in response to discussion. Staff is anticipating that that discussion can complete later this month, and then it could be on your July 2nd report of Planning Commission. And then lastly, text change TC 524 is a Cameron Park NCOD name change. This would change the name of the NCOD district to Forest Park. The Planning Commission is unanimously recommending denial. This discussion was a lot about the process that exists to amend an existing NCOD, particularly the public engagement, public notice that isn't part of that. And so the suggested hearing date for this one is the September 3rd meeting. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, I just wanted to request for rezoning Z8322 that we don't schedule the public hearing at this time. They've asked to make some changes, so we would see this in 2 weeks to schedule it then, still likely for the August 20th date as recommended.
Yes, we can bring that back as a special item.
Councilmember Fort.
I guess I have a clarifying question. Councilmember Branch left something for me as it relates to P4 with the digital billboards, but you're saying there's no hearing to be scheduled, correct?
That's correct. But But I mean, a motion could be made to make no action on the text change.
Okay, so that, I need to read his motion if this is the appropriate time for that one. Okay. So his comments are, I want to thank the Planning Commission for their careful study and appreciate having a better understanding of the significant impacts that a change to the UDO impacting billboards would have. It is his motion that no additional action related to TC 423 be taken.
Seconded by Councilmember Patton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Any other comments on any of these cases? Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, just on the NCOD name change, I wonder if you could speak to, Blaney, just some of the conversation, particularly around process to amend an existing NCOD. My understanding is there is not a defined process in terms of how much community engagement is done or how it is done, but I also have an understanding from the neighborhood that they have had a lot of surveys, votes, discussion. There's been name changes around them. You know, Cameron Village now is the Village District. The Cameron Library is now the Oberlin Village Library. And so I'm just curious about that discussion.
Thank you. Yes, and as you may be familiar, we recently saw another NCOD proposed amendment in the Mordecai NCOD, and we had a similar analysis at that time. The main issue is that NCODs can only be created in one certain way, pursuant to city procedure and process with respect to notifying the neighbors, taking specific votes, and also providing meaningful analysis on the impact of or which houses will be impacted when it comes to development patterns and or will be made non-conforming, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, in order to amend an OCOD, we do not have a similar process. All that we have is a text change process, which, as you know, does not require that notice be mailed to the residents of that NCOD, that no votes be taken, that no specific study has to be performed. So there, sort of fundamentally, when we saw this with the Mordecai NCOD, regardless of what we thought about the substance, granted in that case that was looking at changing some of the development options in that neighborhood that would have changed setbacks and made certain houses non-conforming. And again, those neighbors did not receive specific notice or take a vote and that kind of thing. So basically we didn't have a city process to provide to them on how to amend an NCOD. In this case, it is to change the name of the NCOD. Which is not obviously going to make any individual house non-conforming. However, the other substantive issues we thought remained. In this case, regardless whether we personally liked the name change or not, one could imagine if an individual came forward with a text change to amend the name of an NCOD to something we didn't like. And in that case, or that was particularly offensive or the like, and in that case, without official notice to the neighborhood and a vote from the neighborhood on how to change that, we didn't think it would be appropriate in that case either. And then we face additional concerns that would we provide a different process or a policy on process from a planning commission standpoint based on whether we liked the content of the speech that somebody was proposing. So in this case, there were some members of the neighborhood who said that they did perform surveys and votes. There were other members of the neighborhood who said that they did not perform surveys and votes, that they thought were adequate, or that the final vote count, some people represented it was one vote count, others represented that it was a different vote count in the other direction. And since the city was not involved in that process, we didn't have any way to identify what the actual vote count was. There was no agreement among the neighborhood about what that vote count was. So we have actually, as a planning commission, decided to study this at our strategic planning committee on amending the process for amending NCODs. We've now seen it twice, but we could imagine elsewhere where it really starts to tear apart some of these neighborhoods and turn neighbors against neighbors purely because they don't have a process on how they could fairly do this. People on both sides recognize that if there was a formal neighborhood vote with the city involved and they lost the vote, that they would respect the end result of that vote. But they just didn't trust the process internally as it existed.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I understand that some of the maybe information about votes was not maybe clearly expressed as well during the Planning Commission meeting. I just do want to put it out there that my understanding is a vote was taken in 2021, so September 2021, and the vote was 240 to 201 in favor of a name change. That's the information that I've been provided, but I understand that might have not been an agreement from anyone who'd come to commission. So thank you.
Yes, and on that particular topic, those in favor of the name change did not attend the meeting, so they weren't able to present that. But those that did attend were against the name change, largely from a process standpoint. And I believe the representations they made is that that was not the final vote count as well. So
okay, yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay. You have asked to hold the first item.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the second item, Rawls Drive. Staff is recommending public hearing date of August 20th.
I just want to say, I'm just hearing that the applicant is interested in holding that item to July 2nd as well.
Rawls
Drive, yes.
Okay. All right, we will hold that. Then we also have the text change, TC 1A24, stormwater. You've asked for a 30-day extension.
That's
So
right.
moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. And then what staff is recommending September 3rd for Cameron Park. That's fine? Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you. All right, now we are on to special items. We have missing middle.
Going to let Luke pull up my presentation here. And we'll get started. Good afternoon, Pat Young, Planning and Development Director. Very happy to be here with you today. The purpose of today's presentation is really threefold. To bring you back into the background on missing middle text changes, to provide a summary of missing middle activity, and to remind you of some community feedback we've received and possible next steps. Before I get started, I did want to thank Kiki McDonald of our team, Justin Booker, and Ben Jordan, who are here in chambers today if there are questions following this presentation. So Raleigh is part of a nationwide effort to allow more homes, more types of homes, and more places to help allow for housing choice and over the long term to ensure more affordability of housing. This effort is known as zoning reform, and it goes back in Raleigh over 3 councils in 7 years. But missing middle 1.0 that you see there in 2021 and missing middle 2.0 in 2022 were the most impactful of these changes, although all of these changes you see on this slide work together to promote the goals that I referenced. Of course, missing middle is all housing types between single-family housing and larger apartment buildings, 4 or 5-story apartment buildings. So that includes duplexes, triplexes, townhouses, small garden apartments, live work units, and things of that nature. Missing middle 1.0 and 2.0 in 2021 and 2022 made all of these 11 changes that you see on the slide to the Unified Development Ordinance and allowed many different housing types in more places across the city. As noted previously, these changes were intended to provide housing options for families at all incomes, of all ages, and at all points in their life cycle, so they can be in or stay in the neighborhoods they love. Missing middle types are also significantly more energy efficient due to shared walls, roofs, and infrastructure, and having more missing middle as part of our housing mix is a big part of meeting the city's climate goals. And finally, more homes near transit makes for a better and more effective transit system. It allows for people to save money on having a no car or less cars, and it also significantly contributes to the climate goals since transit use is more efficient than automobile use. Wake County has a deficit of about 66,000 affordable units, and unfortunately, only 8% of all units in the market, and this is for Raleigh, are committed or legally binding affordable, meaning that they're required to be have affordable rents. And so therefore, it's crucial that we encourage and allow the market to produce more homes in more locations so that there will be opportunities for housing folks at all incomes and all ages that want to live here in Raleigh. Zoning reform is an effort that has been underway in Raleigh for 7 years, but our colleagues in Minneapolis, Minnesota adopted a very similar set of changes in 2019, so a couple years before us. There's been a little bit more research on the impact of those changes in Minneapolis. Despite a challenging environment for home builders and home buyers in 2022 and 2023, Minneapolis outproduced its peers due to large pent-up demand for missing middle housing types, despite a small population decline. We had a large population increase here in Raleigh, but we've seen, as you'll see in a moment here, a lot of uptake in response to these housing types being available. And rent growth is slower in communities that have implemented zoning reform. So you see these in the first 4 columns are communities that have undertaken zoning reform, and rent growth has slowed. Raleigh was, as I said, a couple years behind Minneapolis, but very much at the forefront of zoning reform. Data is starting to come in. We are currently working with the North Carolina State University Initiative for Community Growth and Development to bring you all a detailed report on the impact of these provisions in Raleigh and in the Raleigh housing market. But a piece of data we do have is that you've seen Raleigh's middle tier and high-end rent decrease over the last 4 available quarters, whereas that has continued to increase or reduce less in other peer communities that have not undertaken zoning reform. We have been updating the community through our website, and this is a screenshot of that website since October of 2022, but today is the first kind of deep dive into the data that we'll do. And there's a powerful story to tell in staff's opinion. This is a map that shows kind of the extent of the changes that were made over Missing Middle 1 and 2 and some of those other reform efforts. Emerging research has shown that zoning reform is most effective on impacting affordability when it's broad and shallow. So broad means that it's applied broadly across the city, not concentrated in one area. If it's concentrated in one area, it can drive up prices for land. And modest in terms of what changes are allowed. And I think Raleigh hit that just right. In fact, I'm happy to report that in terms of the goals I laid out earlier, our Missing Middle program has been a huge success. It's led to large increases in missing middle housing types, and there's been a lot of home builder and market interest. Our residents have responded strongly to these available housing types, and you see the large increase in townhouse, duplex, and ADU types when those changes were made. So to date, there's over 2,800 units that would not have been allowed prior to 2021 that have been approved. A smaller number of those have been completed, but many are in process. And that's about 30% of all units approved since late 2021, and that makes Raleigh's program one of the most productive missing middle programs in the country. So this slide is intended to represent, or the following slide, I want to break this down by district for you. And of course, I know you're seeing this for the first time, and these slides are a little small. This will be available in board docs right after the presentation today. So you can do a deep dive, and we have spreadsheets behind all of this data that we can certainly share. So this first slide is, we're using the term missing middle projects. This includes all missing middle enabled housing, except for accessory dwelling units, which I'll put on a separate slide, and FTDO, or frequent transit development option development, which I'll explain in a little more detail in a moment. But you can see that there's over 2,000 units of this nature. This is primarily townhouses and duplexes. And those types of housing are on average 15% or more affordable than single-family homes of a comparable size due to the shared walls, roofs, and infrastructure. You can see that this exists across all 5 council districts, and particularly concentrated in Northeast Raleigh and Southeast Raleigh that have more affordable land than most of the city, and therefore have a higher impact on housing accessibility and availability. Accessory dwelling units, we've had 194 applications and another 98 units complete as of 2024. And you see that spread across, concentrated inside the Beltline, but across the entire city that's been used. And this is a really great housing option for adult children, elderly parents, and for rentals for folks to stay in neighborhoods that they love. So the frequent transit development option projects, what the frequent transit development option does is it's designed to allow more housing types and more density in areas that are within a quarter mile of our transit network or a half mile of our BRT network. And again, this is intended to allow more people to live near transit and to enjoy the benefits of having no cars or fewer cars. So this is all the FTDO-enabled projects. And then as we've discussed previously, there are affordable housing requirements or the incentives if you go over 12 units in FTDO. So these are projects that include those units. And these are the actual affordable, this is affordable only units. 204. So we also broke this down, and again, I know this will be a little bit difficult to see maybe at home or from the audience, but we did try to break this down by zoning district, as was requested by some council members. You'll see much of this uptake was in our residential districts. That's where there's the highest demand to live. That's where there's close proximity to jobs, transit amenities, and other things that many of us seek and take for granted in our daily lives. A lot of that is, the largest area of uptake has been townhouses in the R6 zoning district that were previously allowed prior to 2013, but have been prohibited in that district since then. And then you see smaller amounts of uptake in our mixed-use districts, which is what's reflected on this slide. So in summary, there's been over 2,000 units approved or permitted. The majority of those are in Northeast and Southeast Raleigh, as I noted, where there's a more meaningful impact on access and affordability. And the FTDO has produced over 200 affordable units, and that's a more productive bonus program than any in the state. So going back to our engagement with the community last winter and spring, where we did in each district, went out and met with community members to hear their what they're excited about and what they were concerned about the missing middle provisions. Some neighbors brought up concerns that you see reflected on the slide here. But as you are aware, there's a legal challenge to the missing middle provisions and an appeal of subdivision approval made possible by missing middle. Because of this ongoing litigation and after consultation with the attorney's office, we've limited our recommendations to you in terms of areas that you could look at for short-term policy focus to be areas that are less related or unrelated to those legal proceedings. So two of those are things like character impacts that were raised by some neighbors of missing middle types on existing neighborhoods. That would include potential for infill standards to be applied to FTDO where they're not currently applied, and opportunities to incentivize tree preservation and planting with missing middle projects. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions or comments that you may have.
Anybody have questions for Pat? Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, hi Pat, thanks. Can you go back to that slide with the summary stats?
Sure.
It had a lot on it, I just wanted to catch it. Okay, so just to put a really fine point on what you're showing us here, 2,000 units created, 203 or 204, depending on the slide, affordable units. So that's 10% of all of the units created through missing middle are designated affordable for folks making roughly, asterisk on housing size, but roughly $60,000 held at 30 years or more.
That's correct. The 203 affordable units, there's a mix of solely market rate units that were created through the incentive program and units that are part of affordable housing projects that are receiving tax credit finance or some other subsidy, but that would not have been allowed without the FTDO being in place, the number of units. So that is a mix of those, but yes, that is, your characterization is correct.
Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, at the end, Pat, you're asking for some guidance on whether to move forward with these focus areas, correct?
Right, or if there's anything you all want to add or revise or modify here, but this is based on both community feedback and an assessment of the legal concerns that were raised earlier.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to note that from District D, you know, incentivizing tree preservation and planting is really critical. So that's something I support wholeheartedly. I'm also curious if there are opportunities as well to further advance some of our successful missing middle housing types that are generally, I'd say, desirable, you know, throughout the city and haven't maybe had that much controversy. ADUs, I think overall have been well supported. And one concern that I see with, you know, really getting that housing type to spread is financing. So for folks that have a little bit of land, but don't have, you know, probably $50,000 to $100,000 to get going on that kind of a project, they may not have an ability to get a loan. And so I'm curious if you all could also look at those opportunities for financing for ADUs. I know other communities have done that. And we've spoken some about credit unions and different financing mechanisms out there. So I just want to put that to council's attention. I'm also curious about opportunities when it comes to revising fire codes related to street design. So I'm aware that there are some restrictions that make it hard to build certain kinds of neighborhoods that may be desirable. So I don't know enough about that, but I'd really like to learn more if you can also bring that information back.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate and support the financing idea for the ADUs. And I know that there are programs, I think ones that I've researched are out west, but how you can provide some funding in exchange for some public benefit. The ones I've seen are like a forgivable loan or a grant if the ADU is used for below market rate rental. I think there could be some benefit too for folks that are seeking to have maybe senior members of their household wanting to be able to age in place. I think that eases the burden as well on some community members. So if we could just get creative, I think that's really helpful. And I also like the idea of looking at if there are any impediments in our own code that are preventing uptake of some other types of options. I mean, I can think of some challenges that the cottage courts had in Idlewild with stormwater, and I can think of some building code, state building code issues, which may have been cleaned up or not, I'm not sure. But I think that that could be helpful too.
Thank you.
I would, we have met with the home builders on incentivizing tree preservation and planting. So I would like to see that move forward. But I do have a question too. Whatever happened with the ADU pitch that we held? Nothing seems to have come out of that. Is there some issues there?
Sure. So the mayor's referring to what we call the Pitch Fest, which was asking the community for creative proposals to incentivize the use of ADUs. The successful proposer proposed a model that would allow third parties to lease people's property for ADUs, which has been done successfully out west in other jurisdictions. But our ordinance prohibits that currently. So we've been in conversation with the attorney's office and others about what we could bring you in terms of, and we can include that in some of these requests made by Councilmember Harrison and Melton in terms of areas of impediment or possible change that would further allow for expansion of ADUs and these types.
I would like to see that brought forward. I think, I went to the Pitch Fest and there was some really creative ideas there. And if we award the winner, okay, but then we can't do it, we got to fix that.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other questions? Councilmember Patton.
Yeah, just comments if everyone has shared their thoughts. I appreciate you bringing this, and I acknowledge that there might have been lots of community concerns raised, or there continues to be a lot of community interest, that not all areas of community concern are 100% in play due to the pending litigation, or the ongoing litigation, as you've mentioned, but that these are two areas where we do have some opportunities. The primary resident feedback that I get is around scale and massing and the differences between the sort of scale and massing differences between existing homes and the new ones that are coming in. And also want to really absolutely uplift that this is producing affordable housing, designated affordable housing that is not subsidized, which allows our city subsidies to go farther in other ways. And so I would like for staff to bring us back options for text changes that address these short-term policy focus areas while holding in balance the real and actual impacts on affordable housing that are happening. So I don't want to undo that. That would be my direction, my motion.
Could you, I was having trouble following that. What is it that you're looking for?
So I'd like staff to bring back options for a text change that address these short-term policy focus areas that are here. So.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I'd like to add that I support these policy changes, and now that we're seeing data come in, I do think for folks who maybe were confused or uncertain about what the impact would be, we are seeing some real benefits. I mean, it takes a while for policies to take effect and for us to be able to assess their impact. There are a few cities who were ahead of us on zoning reform, so we have that as sort of a guide. But we are starting to see it in Raleigh. I mean, rents are coming down at a higher rate than the national average, and in some places where the rents nationally are actually going up. And we are getting actual affordable housing through no subsidy, and I think that's really important. One piece that I can appreciate is when folks were talking about, I guess, sort of the out-of-scale nature of some of the developments. And I was on the council when these were approved. One thing for me, I would always say, if they can build a McMansion next to your house for one that can house one person or one family, under the same rules, if you can build townhomes or something that can house more people, increasing housing supply, reducing cost. Sometimes it's not affordable housing, but it is certainly more affordable than the one McMansion that could have been built. And that does help. That does help. And so I don't want to do anything that is going to significantly restrict or limit what you have shown us to be one of the most successful missing middle policies in the country. But I am in favor of trying to find some middle ground on some of these tension points, because I think that allows these policies to remain in effect for a very long time and not to be the constant, I guess, ire of political pressure. And so I will vote for this. I don't know what you're going to bring to us, and ultimately I may vote no when you bring it to us if I think it's going to be against what I truly believe is the right thing to do. But I will vote for advancing this forward just to see what you can bring us. But I do think it needs to be pulling a rabbit out of a hat, if you can, to continue our very successful program while also trying to address some of these concerns that I think are providing some heartburn.
Sure. Thank you, sir. We're used to trying to thread the needle, so we'll do our best.
I have a question too. The term character really disturbs me. That seems so judgmental. I'm not sure what that means. Can you better define that?
Sure. So we were reflecting language that was used by a lot of our residents. I certainly agree with you and share the concern that it's extremely subjective. It can, unfortunately, it's often been used to characterize residents rather than architecture and buildings. And so we try to avoid that term, but we did use it here because it's what was reflected in the comments we got from the community. So as we move forward, we'd want to kind of pull that apart and make sure that we're really looking at the impact of the built form and how it engages and interacts with the existing built form.
Well, we don't do that for single-family homes, though.
That's true.
I can't support that part of it. I can support the tree preservation piece. So what I'm going to ask is if we could move forward with that as a separate motion.
Just to briefly clarify, We do have infill compatibility standards for single-family homes. They do have to have some relative situation to the other single-family homes if there's going to be a tear down and a rebuild. So, yeah, I'm not necessarily suggesting anything more restrictive than would be applied to a single-family home, but I think there are components of the existing missing middle package where there are some of the options don't have those infill compatibility standards. So
I can't support that, so I'm going to ask if we could make a motion to bring back to us two things we discussed today. One is the incentives for tree preservation and planting, and the second would be everything that was mentioned about accessory dwelling units. So I will make that motion, and then if you want to add something, Councilmember Patton, I'm going to vote against that, though.
So just two separate motions. So
That's what that's what I've suggested.
Wasn't the motion properly seconded? Don't we have to take that one first?
I'm going to have to vote against that. And
fine.
that's what I'm asking.
That's fine.
That's what I'm asking. Would you be willing to withdraw the motion?
just split it up.
Because I do want to vote for the incentives. I think that's really important. I've been working on that.
yeah, I think it's splitting hairs.
No, I feel very strongly about the word character and how this is portrayed. And I don't want to be that person who judges other people with character. So I'm asking if you would withdraw the motion, and then let's just do two separate motions.
Yes, I understand the request. That's fine. You go ahead and make your motion.
Okay, could you withdraw?
Motion withdrawn.
Thank you. I've already made the motion.
I
Now
think the
that
wires are.
Councilmember Patton's motion is withdrawn, we're going to make it again in a second. Basically, what we're trying to do is just split up. There's two policies on the screen. We're going to split them and vote on them separately. So, Mayor, you have made a motion on the second piece, which is the tree incentive, and adding in the ADU incentive that
ADUs.
Councilmember Harris and I talked about. I will second your motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Now I'll make a second motion that some options for text changes be brought back to us that make modest impacts to form and massing while threading the needle to allow affordable housing to continue to be built.
I will second that motion. I also don't like the characterization of the word character, and I know I just said it twice in the same sentence, but that's not what I'm voting for. I don't know if I'll ultimately vote for the text changes that come forward. I do trust your judgment, so I will see, but I am going to second and vote in favor of moving this provision forward.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? So that was, okay, thank you.
And just to make sure, I also am going to make the motion about bringing back any information or options for revising fire codes that could better improve street design in neighborhoods. I don't know if that needs to be a motion, but I'm just going to put it out there.
Well, and also I heard information about ADU finance and then potentially other regulatory hurdles or impediments. Those may take a little longer than the first two, just as a point of information.
Do you need a motion on that?
I don't. I'm happy to take that direction unless if there's consensus. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Very good. Thank you all so much.
Okay, thank you, Pat. All right, next we have the appropriation from council contingency.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Nick Sadler, Budget Management Services, and I'm here with your final allocation for FY24 for council contingency items. If you remember from the June 4th meeting, Mayor Baldwin requested $10,000 to support Activate Good, to support youth volunteer programming, and Councilmember Branch requested $6,000 to support the Comedic Cultural Science and Systems of Unity, which we've given an acronym of KCSSU in the agenda item. If you also remember, we only had $7,026 left. We did take the remaining amount that was left over from the reception that was held earlier this year. So what we are recommending is that staff or that council split that down the middle, with Activate Good and KCSSU each receiving $3,513 to be to be sent out if you so desire. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Councilmember Black? I can't. Okay. I didn't see a hand raised, so thank you.
All right, thank you.
I would ask that staff bring this back to us when the new budget takes effect and see if we can put any additional funding in it. The Activate Good program is really focused on youth in the summer. And I think you all should have received information about it, but we might want to consider that as well.
So you're requesting us to bring back the balance of Activate Good for the July 2nd?
Yes.
Okay, for council
And I would ask
contingency.
Activate Good to reach out and let people know what the program is about.
We'll do it.
Before you walk away, Councilmember Branch is not here, so I guess I would make the same request.
It's for both.
He just said Activate Good. He didn't
I did
mention both.
just say Activate Good, so we'll,
It's for both.
for the balance for both the requested items on July 2nd.
So can we do it in August, since it will just be one day into the new budget, and we won't really make a decision until you get back if we bring it back on the agenda?
I know Activate Good is a summer program, so I think it would be too late.
Are they not funded in any of our other grant opportunities?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. We'll get it back before you.
Okay. And next, we have report and recommendation of the city manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We have 3 items today in the manager's report, the first of which is the Brookside Drive Safety Initiatives. We have Kenneth Ritchie from Transportation here to present on this item.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Kenneth Ritchie with Transportation here. Today, what we'll do is kind of go through a history on Brookside Drive, kind of talk through some of the analysis that staff has done, the coordination that's been ongoing with the community, and then certainly ask for your direction on moving this forward. So looking at our agenda, we'll go through some background, review of existing conditions, summary of the feedback, kind of a review of the curb space proposal, and then some recommendations moving forward. So look at the background. Heavy engagement in this started in March 2023, but certainly I think concerns with regards to this area date back to 2019. We'll get to that with some of the subsequent slides, but there was review and there has been speed limit reductions along this corridor in the past. But certainly related to evaluating travel lane and parking configurations on Brookside Drive between Frank Street and Glasscock Streets. This is really leading up to the front door to Kine Elementary. Some aggressive driving through this elongated section. What we have is kind of a historic right turn lane that really facilitated the morning and afternoon pickup queues for Con that were alleviated with their redevelopment early in the 2020s. Some speeding concerns, concerns with parking availability, and then certainly being mindful of bike and pedestrian safety and connectivity throughout the area. So this is an existing shot looking north along Brookside Drive towards Frank Street and Kine Elementary. As I referenced, if you look towards the right-hand side of the street, you do see that dedicated right turn lane that historically has been used to facilitate the queues. Now that the queues have really been alleviated to a very significant extent, we do have additional pavement out here that does create some opportunities for behaviors that could challenge safety in the area. So this is looking at that Kine Elementary queuing. Prior to their redevelopment, they had very little stacking on site, and average queues were roughly in about the 900-foot range, certainly in the afternoon queue. With their redevelopment post kind of 21, 22, we saw a significant reduction in that queue to about 100 feet out onto Brookside Drive, with a significant amount of that queuing now being held on site. And so again, that has provided some additional space that may not have been there historically. So when we look at this analysis, certainly it is not a one program analysis that plays into these types of inquiries and assessments. And from a philosophical standpoint within the department, certainly Vision Zero is the base and the foundation of everything that we do, and really trying to make sure that we are setting up our transportation system to reduce and eliminate fatalities and make them safe, healthy, and equitable for all. And so with this, the Vision Zero program has been engaged in this review, along with our bike and ped programs, our traffic calming program, and our parking and curb space management program. The traffic calming program, again, has been engaged early on and did result in a speed limit reduction. The speed limit prior to 2020 was 35. There were concerns that were substantiated with speeding, and so that speed limit was reduced in 2020 to 30. We have been engaged with the community about subsequent evaluations of the area for traffic calming. Unfortunately, based off the vehicle volumes, it does not qualify for the traffic calming program, and so that's why there were those other program areas that were engaged in looking at opportunities to try and enhance the safety along this corridor. Looking to and noting the desires that have been raised from some of the community with regards to how can we enhance our bike and pedestrian infrastructure in the area. Brookside Drive is part of the 2016 Bike Raleigh long-term plan, but it is not prioritized in that initial 10-year priority list. Future opportunities to look at bike infrastructure, city resurfacing, which that street has been resurfaced within about the last decade, so likely it's 5 years or more out before it would come back up for resurfacing. And certainly there's going to be opportunities with our current bike plan update, where all of our system will be reassessed, reprioritized, rescored, and so that'll be another opportunity for us to kind of see how would this, given the changing dynamics in the community, not just in this area, but overall, how does this project score in terms of that prioritization opportunity? And the recommendations for that bike plan update will be coming back to you in the spring of 2025. Also, looking in this area in total, there is a number of efforts that are ongoing that are really geared at facilitating safety and really, in this area, facilitated making pedestrian connectivity. We've got the Automotive Way Roundabout project that is currently in design. We're looking at that to go to construction probably middle to late next year. Part of that will be an extension of sidewalk down Brookside Drive to close a gap between there and Vale Street that will connect to the Vale Street, Plainview Avenue petition sidewalk project that's currently in design, and we're anticipating that to go to bid later this summer. So certainly lots of enhancements as it relates to pedestrian connectivity and providing those opportunities for people to be able to move safely in options other than cars through this area. So when we look, based off the assessment that staff has done, we look at the curb space proposal that has been presented. Really what we're looking at is how do we create some friction and try and reduce the amount of space that cars have to be able to navigate with speed through this area. And so the proposal really does look at an introduction of on-street parking along this, and with that does also introduce some chicane type movements, which are some horizontal deflections of cars to try and slow down some of those movements through the area. This would provide 53 full-time on-street parking spots. It also does shorten that right turn lane into Kine Elementary, consistent with that about 100 foot of queuing that we've seen. And again, this does create that friction with some lane shifts. It also makes the lanes a little bit narrower, and with the introduction of cars also does naturally, we hope, encourage and slower speeds through here because of just that feel that it's a narrow corridor versus having that wide 3-lane section that's out there today. And then just looking at a little bit of the history on the engagement with this project, the heavy inquiry started in the spring of 2023. Staff did review this heavily in the summer of 23. We did take the recommendations ahead of a planned recommendation to council in the summer of 2023 to BPAC for their review. There was citizen engagement that started to occur during that time. Fall of 23, we were working with property owners based off some of the feedback we had received, based off notifications of some of the changes that were proposed, and then certainly have continued that further collaboration through the spring as we were looking to bring this item forward, really trying to make sure that we're understanding all of the concerns that the community may be raising, and certainly trying to help educate them on the thought process and that we have gone through as we've assessed the options for improving the situation in this area. And so with that, staff's recommended action would be to authorize the parking changes and the traffic schedule included with the agenda materials that would allow us to implement that on-street parking. And two, with that, we would ask for your direction to follow up in a year, because what we can come back with at that point too is we can monitor the utilization of the on-street parking, and that also aligns with the results of the bike plan coming forward. And ultimately at that point, based off how those play out, there could be discussions on different tools for how we look at addressing the long term along Brookside Drive in this area. But certainly with that, I will take any questions.
Councilmember Branch has asked that this be sent to the Transportation and Transit Committee for further discussion, and he would hear that at the August meeting.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
That was unanimous. Thank you.
The next item is a good story to tell. We have Echo Swansea from Engineering Services here asking for the authorization to enter into a bid for some rooftop solar installation in city facilities.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam City Manager, excuse me. Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Echo Swansea of Engineering Services. And as mentioned, today I'll be presenting to you 3 ARPA-funded solar rooftop projects and seeking your approval to authorize the award of bids and authorize the city manager to approve the contracts for design and installation.
So moved.
I'm done.
Making your life easier, Echo. No.
I appreciate that.
I'm kidding.
So we'll begin with the background information and climate action initiatives, followed by a project overview, cost and performance forecasting, and then move to staff recommendations. As part of the City of Raleigh's strategic plan and in alignment with Raleigh's Community Climate Action Plan, the city is committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and promoting sustainable energy practices. In support of the city's climate action and solar programs, you, Raleigh City Council, previously assigned $1.5 million in American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds, to support various solar projects such as Solarize the Triangle, Bus Rapid Transit Shelters, rooftop solar, and solar feasibility evaluations for city facilities and sites. Each of these project categories are worthy contenders for the spotlight. But today, we will focus in on solar feasibility evaluations for city facilities approved by City Council on July 5th, 2022. This project category funds project evaluation, design, renewable energy credits, lease versus ownership of solar technology, and interconnections to the electric utility grid. In partnership with the Office of Sustainability, the Integrated Facility Services Division of the Engineering Services Department was allotted funding to perform structural roof analysis of 3 existing operation facilities, supporting major operating departments and providing critical services to the City of Raleigh residents. The roof assessments confirmed the city's forethought and establishment of long-term goals to impact climate change and invest in renewables at the time these facilities were constructed. Assessments results proved the facility roofs viable for the installation of solar rooftop systems and ignited the efforts to implement these solar rooftop projects. Engineering Services publicly advertised a request for bids for 3 design-build solar rooftop installation projects on October 26, 2023, and a second time on January 13th, 2024, and again on March 14th, 2024, to encourage the minimum number of bidders required for federally funded projects. Because of minimal bid participation initially, Staff met with local subject matter experts to discuss barriers to bidding the projects and adapted the bid solicitation to a structure based on that feedback. On March 28, 2024, 2 bids were received for each of the 3 project locations. The intent of these solar projects will actualize the American Rescue Plan Act funded solar feasibility evaluations for city facilities for the design, installation, and commissioning of solar systems on rooftop services in 3 city operations facilities. Championing the Raleigh City Council adopted goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions 80% by 2050 through the community-wide climate action plan, these projects are anticipated to generate solar energy to feed directly back to the electric utility grid through a sell-all system. By harnessing solar energy, it's possible to generate passive electricity and contribute to a cleaner, more sustainable environment. The Northeast Remote Operations Center proposed solar system design is planned to install 579 solar panels with a generating capacity of approximately 280 kilowatts, resulting in an estimated annual savings of $14,000 in electricity cost, and is projected to offset more than 550,000 pounds of carbon dioxide, or CO2, annually. The Central Operations Facility, Building Number 1, has a proposed solar design plan to install 401 solar panels with a generating capacity of approximately 194 kilowatts, resulting in an estimated annual savings of $10,000 in electricity cost, and is projected to offset more than 400,000 pounds of CO2 annually. And the third site, the Central Operations Facility, Building Number 2, has a proposed solar system design plan to install 258 solar panels with a generating capacity of approximately 138 kilowatts, resulting in an estimated savings of $6,000 in electricity cost and annually, and is projected to offset more than 245,000 pounds of CO2 annually. Here, aerial images graphically represent how the proposed solar panels may look once installed on the roof at each location. Because these facilities make up part of a greater campus, the sites offer unobstructed, passive solar exposure, making them optimal locations for rooftop solar systems. At the top of the screen, you will see the Northeast Remote Operations Center located at 7700 Burwell Street. This campus of remote operations facilities supports major operating departments, including engineering services, transportation, and parks, recreation, and cultural resources, field operations deployment for service areas in the northern sector of Raleigh. The Central Operations Facilities are also a campus of remote operations located near the intersection of Westinghouse and Raleigh Boulevards. Building Number 1 and 2 are LEED certified buildings supporting operational functions near the central portions of the city through the same departments previously mentioned. Upon receiving bids and after a thorough evaluation process, 8M Solar LLC and Kate Associates Incorporated, DBA Yes Solar Solutions of the Triangle, have been selected as the most qualified bidders based on unit cost. These companies have demonstrated expertise in solar technology and a commitment to quality and sustainability. 8M Solar LLC is a certified MWBE firm locally owned and headquartered right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. 8M Solar plans to self-perform 100% of the work at the Northeast Remote Operations Center and the Central Operations Facility, Building Number 1, for a combined total of $761,831. They are certified solar designers by the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners and licensed engineers in designing and installing commercial, residential, and nonprofit solar systems across the eastern United States since 2009. Kate Associates Incorporated, DBA Yes Solar Solutions of the Triangle, who I will refer to as Yes Solar Solutions, will subcontract 20% of the construction work with a certified MWBE firm for the work at COF Building 2 for a cost of $267,001. Yes Solar Solutions is a nationally accredited solar installation company by the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners based in Cary, North Carolina. They have been designing, installing, and commissioning both residential and commercial projects in North Carolina and South Carolina since 2010. In total, these three projects culminate a celebrated 79% MWBE participation on the total $1,028,832 of ARPA funding investment. These investments are expected to be offset by the long-term utility savings and potential revenue for selling excess electricity back to the utility grid. Renewable energy investments contribute to climate action and environmental impacts through the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. These projects will be a direct contribution to the city's renewable energy targets and support the goals of the Office of Sustainability-led Community Climate Action Plan. To recap, economic advantages include the generation of passive electricity to be sold back to the utility grid, resulting in significant annual utility cost savings, thereby reducing the city's operational expenses and realizing long-term financial benefits from decreased resilience on non-renewable energy sources. Through the installation of these projects, the solar rooftop systems, the city continues to set itself apart as a leader in sustainable practices, encouraging local businesses and residents to adopt renewable energy solutions, and solidifies Raleigh's vigor for environmental stewardship, a significant step forward in the city's commitment to sustainability, climate action, and fiscal responsibility. By approving, the City Council will enable Raleigh to continue leading in environmental innovation and economic efficiency. For this reason, staff recommends City Council authorize the award of bids to 8M Solar LLC and Kate Associates Incorporated, DBA Yes Solar Solutions of the Triangle, and authorize the city manager to approve the contracts to install rooftop solar systems at 3 city facilities. This concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Councilmember Fort.
Can I make the motion?
I already did.
Let
You
me
want to second it?
I'll second your motion. And I would like to just say, I think it's so important to be able to see as much diversity and participation in the awarding of this contract. I know we did a disparity study, and it did not come out favorably, so this is a great step in the direction of being able to implement some of the recommendations from that study. So very happy to see the hard work that y'all have been able to do to get this accomplished.
I'll second that. Yeah. All right. All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you so much. This is a great step forward. Thank you. Thank you.
And the last item today we're excited to bring back, you will recall in the fall of 2023, I made a commitment that staff would get together and work with our peers across the country to bring forward some safety regulations and parade protocols that would set not only the parade producers, but the city up for success, ultimately seeking to make sure that our community was safe as possible. So today we have Whitney Schoenfield from the Office of Emergency, well, not Emergency Management anymore, Special Events, here to bring forward those recommendations for your consideration.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Once again, I'm Whitney Schoenfeld with the Office of Special Events. As you know, as our city manager just mentioned, she pledged to you at the end of last year that we would work to enhance parade safety. So we're here today to share our final considerations with you, and then feedback that we've gathered within the last 2 weeks has also been incorporated into today's presentation. So over the last year and a half, our office, in addition to other staff within the city, has taken steps to advance efforts to ensure that parades occur in the safest way possible. Added vehicle requirements were first put in place in March 2023, following the tragic accident at the Raleigh Christmas Parade in 2022. This horrific event occurred. We did a lot in the past to ensure that all events were as safe as possible, and now we're proposing an extra layer of protection on parades that pose the highest risk because they include motorized vehicles. I do just want to emphasize that rules are not changing for pedestrian-only parades. We're only talking about parades that include motorized vehicles today. So this slide here provides a bit of context just to show the typical parades our office permits each year. There's not an overwhelming amount, but there are a handful here. And then for our past parades, the fallen firefighters, they chose to modify their event this year, and then St. Aug's and NC State no longer occur on public right-of-way, so that way they don't need a permit from our office. So as I mentioned before, 4 months after the Raleigh Christmas Parade in 2022, these are some of the vehicle requirements that were implemented in March 2023. So these are just some of them. I do just want to point out that the driver age was later updated to 25 years old, and that's to be consistent with pending state legislation. So these requirements were implemented last year for the Raleigh St. Patrick's Day Parade, the Fallen Firefighters Memorial, Carib Mask, and the Broughton High School Homecoming Parade. Now we've had sufficient time to do even more thorough review and more benchmarking, which has resulted in additional new and enhanced requirements that we're sharing today. So since the end of last year, staff has continued to seek out best practices at the local, state, regional, and national levels. In January of this year, our office hosted a parade organizer meeting to gather feedback on current safety measures and to generate new ideas for additional enhancements. All parade organizers attended, along with staff from the Raleigh Police Department, Risk Management, the City Attorney's Office, and the Office of Community Engagement. Outreach efforts also included our office connecting with municipalities and public safety officials from some of the largest, most complex parades in the country, including the Rose Parade in Pasadena, California, and the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City. The biggest takeaways from talking to the Rose Parade and Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is that Rose Parade has more sophisticated, dedicated vehicles. They're essentially floats that drive themselves, so it's very different than people creating a paper mache float on a trailer that's pulled by a pickup truck here in Raleigh. They also have a dedicated team of mechanics. They run fire drills on these floats that, again, drive themselves. New York City has a dedicated motor unit of their police department who conducts all vehicle inspections, but they were able to share that inspection checklist with us, which we've incorporated into our requirements. The most helpful tool we came across was finding the Event Safety Alliance through our peers in Denver that directed us to them, and learning that a parade safety working group had recently been established in 2023. So the group is comprised of representatives listed here on the screen from Disney, the Rose Parade again, South by Southwest, the Kentucky Derby, City of Las Vegas, City of Phoenix, Mardi Gras, and more. So I joined the group, and we actually meet monthly to develop an American national standard for recommended practices around parade safety. So it's been a really valuable experience to not only focus on enhancing the safety of our parades in Raleigh, but to be a part of a larger conversation that industry professionals can use across the country. So the group is currently in the draft stage of a document because there is no standard that currently exists to address parade safety. There are certain resources online and whatnot, but there's no national American standard, so that's what this group is trying to create. So once that document is in place, which is expected to be in 2025, we would incorporate any additional requirements, but much of what that group has done has been included in what we're presenting to you here today. So based on benchmarking, engagement with our Raleigh parade organizers, and involvement in this parade safety working group, and in consultation with the City Attorney's Office, we're introducing the following requirements to supplement our existing processes surrounding parades. So what's new and enhanced for our parade organizers? Parade organizers are going to be responsible for ensuring compliance with all parade requirements. As part of their submission, organizers must now provide certification stating that they've satisfied all requirements imposed by the city. This will include actually signing off and collecting a lot of documentation that I'm going to reference, retaining that documentation for at least 3 years, and then if something were to occur where we needed that documentation, they would then provide any relevant materials to the city. We're asking them to now conduct a risk assessment to identify risks that are most likely to occur at that event, at that time, for that specific type of crowd of people, and identifying risks that would have the greatest impact on their participants and their spectators. An emergency action plan is already a requirement, but we do have a plug and chug form right now, and we think that there could be a more concerted effort to identify ways to mitigate risks at these parades. One item that is new that we incorporated based on online feedback that we received is that the emergency action plans should now address a way that organizers communicate with parents or guardians in the event of an emergency involving a child. And again, that was based on feedback we received from our online form. Insurance is also already a requirement, but we are proposing to increase our automobile and general liability to $2 million $2 million for each occurrence and $4 million aggregate, and that's after conversations with our city attorney's office and risk management. Parade organizers will now use an entry information form to screen entries that are involved in the parade, and they'll be screening all entries and drivers to make sure that they're providing a valid driver's license, they're properly able to drive the vehicle they wish to in the parade, they have no recent moving violations, and that if they're driving a specialty float, that there's evidence to support that they've been trained to drive that float. We're also asking for all motorized vehicles in parades to present organizers with a recent, within 30 days, vehicle safety inspection by a qualified mechanic familiar with that type of vehicle. The inspection is consistent with DMV standards, so it's still looking at safe operation of the vehicle's brakes, tires, light, horn, emissions, and current registration. We do recognize that there are some vehicles in a parade that may not actually require registration because they're not a typical vehicle that would drive on streets, such as tractors, antique cars, and whatnot. So for those that would not have a current registration, we are still asking that they're inspected by a qualified mechanic familiar with that type of vehicle, especially if it's going to be in a parade, pulling floats, and again, being mixed with pedestrians. We're also asking that vehicles used for towing be inspected for no trip hazards, exposed cables or wires, and that there's adequate fall prevention on a float, such as a handrail, a harness, or a tether to keep people safe. We're also asking for event organizers to obtain an operator safety acknowledgement from each driver in a parade. So that form lays out that drivers are acknowledging that they're well rested, they haven't consumed alcohol, drugs, or medication within a recent time period that would impair their driving, they're familiar with the parade route, they know that their vehicle's in working order, and so on and so forth. We're also asking event organizers to ensure that parade participants all sign a city release, indemnity, and covenant before they participate in a parade. And this is similar to what we do in parks programming currently. Continuing on with our new and enhanced requirements for parade organizers, we're going to implement required meetings. So our staff right now, other staff in the city, we do regularly meet with all event organizers, but now we want organizers to host meetings with all entries that are a part of their parade. So they're also acknowledging and aware of the safety standards that it takes to be involved in a parade. So a first-time workshop for folks that have never been a part of a parade before, an all-entry meeting, and then a specific meeting for our drivers and walking marshals and spotters. So the in-person conversation or virtual would be great, but we also want to make sure that there is clear written guidance that is shared with parade participants, whether that be on a participant website or a registration packet. The next one already occurs, but we want to call out that parade routes need to avoid any risks to entries, spectators, or those supporting the event. So we're avoiding broken pavement such as potholes, speed bumps, railroad crossings, basically anything that could cause a hazard to someone on foot or cause hazard by jeopardizing the stability of a vehicle or a float. There needs to be a reasonable distance between motorized units and pedestrian units. We're proposing 55 feet. And then weather is important at every event, but we want to make sure that our parade organizers are monitoring the forecast and that they're planning for how to communicate any weather-related decisions to their participants and to spectators. And then ultimately, parade organizers are responsible for the supervision of their event as a final assurance layer of safety practices. So moving into our office has accountable processes in place, but again, there's always room for improvement and things that we can do better and more things that we can do. So our permitting process is extensive with a 120-day application deadline for parades. I mentioned that we already require an emergency action plan. We require site maps or route maps to make sure that we are avoiding railroad tracks or construction zones and things. We require certificates of insurance. RPD does off-duty contracts to support our events. They also create security operations plans. And then we also deploy traffic barricades or require event organizers to do so. We have meridian barriers, which are considered crash barriers that are used to deter either driver vehicle accidents or a hostile attack. And then class 3 barriers are also used to deter vehicles from entering a parade route, any event route, just by knowing that the road is closed. We also communicate expectations to parade organizers outlined in the current city code. For instance, currently, no one participating in a parade can distribute candy, prizes, or favors of any kind. This is to prevent throwing candy and whatnot and people running out into the street, again, running out into where vehicles might be, or someone throwing a projectile and someone could get injured that way by getting hit by the object that's thrown. So in addition to what is already in place, the following are new and enhanced requirements, responsibilities of our office. So we want to update the special event application to require organizers to tell us the amount and types of entries involved in their parade. In the past, we haven't known how many floats or vehicles would be a part of a parade without having to ask. We're also going to ask that organizers submit an official lineup of all parade entries prior to the event taking place, and that all entries are labeled or numbered in the parade. So if there was an instance with a particular entry number 13, you know where you are in the lineup. If you are directly impacted, others, it just may be good situational awareness to know that something is happening with lineup number 13, for instance. We recognize that safety is not limited to parade participants, so as an enhanced effort, the city also plans to remind attendees of safety considerations when they come to a parade through Know Before You Go parade attendee tips. We do this for some large-scale events already, at least regarding traffic impacts for things to be aware of or where to park. But now we want to tell people if they're coming to a parade, they need to respect the parade route, never run out into the street. They need to, if you see something, say something. If you notice any suspicious activity, make sure you're reporting that to volunteers, parade staff, public safety staff. If you're attending a parade with children, make sure that you're keeping them close and supervising them at all times. Make sure you're looking out for first aid locations, evacuation routes, things like that. So we already do event evaluations for all of our events, but now, as soon as possible after a parade, while details are still fresh, our office wants to convene an after-action meeting with all relevant stakeholders involved in the parade to review how things went, what went well, what did we miss, what are some areas of improvement for future considerations. So these considerations were shared with parade organizers earlier this month. We also launched an online feedback form on the city's website to gather more feedback from the general public as well. So some questions that parade organizers raised when we met with them, they asked about deadlines associated with these requirements, which we would work to create if this is approved. They also asked about chaperone ratios of adults to children, which is outlined in our resources For walking groups, it's 1 adult for every 15 children. For floats, it's no more than 1 adult per 4 children, and that can depend, it could be less. They asked about there being flexibility with giving the lineup to the city because obviously things could change. A particularly entry could drop out, somebody else could drop in. We said we can certainly be flexible with that as long as we still have it prior to the event, and then the police department would use that as well for their own operations plan that they create. They asked about working with entry representatives to collect all participant information. We said yes. The online feedback form was also shared with media outlets who did stories both online and on TV. We received 33 responses total within the last 2 weeks. For as many people who advocated for the return of vehicles, it's interesting to point out that we received the same amount for people that did not want to see motorized vehicles in parades again. So it kind of came down to tradition and safety were some things that were commented on. So for folks that did not want to see vehicles return, they prefer to see small electric vehicles like golf carts, bicycles, scooters. There were at least 2 comments about going green, which would aid in less noise and air pollution. They also just recognized, again, the risk of mixing vehicles with pedestrians. They've enjoyed the pedestrian-only parades that have occurred and consider these more family-friendly and creative, too. Some comments mentioned that there are too many requirements to have in a parade now, and others said the exact opposite and that we aren't being strict enough. The speed of travel was asked about, the distance between entries, which again, we lay out in all of our resources. We also saw a range of feedback submitted about the timing of vehicle inspections. Some people said within 90 days, some people said within a week, a couple of weeks, and again, we've proposed within 30 days. Some wanted to see the driver's age raised from 21 to 25, which it was in June of last year. And then someone else wanted to see the driver's age match DMV standards, which would be far younger than what we've suggested here. Some folks pointed out the importance of barricades. So again, those traffic barriers used to prevent any accidents or hostile attacks. We did receive 1 comment about who we benchmark with and why they perceived we only sought after much, much larger parades. So I did just want to highlight here that we sought out best practices at the local, state, regional, national levels. We talked to Chapel Hill, Carborough, and Zebulon, who all made similar decisions about their Christmas parades last year. We meet monthly also with a separate group, a regional group of other municipalities who have special events staff across the state of North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia. Parades has regularly come up in those conversations too. We've reached out to our peers in Savannah, Denver, Austin, Sacramento. We have a very long list. But what we found is that there's not a lot out there, which again is consistent with why this American national standard is being created. So we did want to talk to some of the largest, most complex parades like Macy's and the Rose Parade. We recognize not everything they do could apply here, but why not take the opportunity if we could connect with them to learn what we could take away from them and how they handle these for some of the most experienced, well-known parades across the country. So pending any questions, comments, or further discussion, council can choose to adopt the code amendment and enact the motorized parade policy included in your agenda materials. By doing so, staff believes that the incorporation of these revised safety guidelines and protocols would allow for traditional parades involving motorized vehicles to resume. I want to close by saying once again that motorized vehicles in parades poses a more significant risk than a pedestrian-only parade. The requirements we've shared today, again, give us that added layer of protection. A pedestrian-only parade is still an option if an organizer is not able to fulfill these requirements. We recognize that these new requirements will put more work on organizers and those involved in a parade, and that's why we have designed templates for all of these documents that we're going to be asking as requirements. We appreciate everyone's understanding and patience, certainly throughout this process. We did receive 1 public comment via the online form that says they feel like we took an appropriate pause. So we do feel like our approach has been reasonable to find a way forward. There is no single best way to hold a safe parade, and risk is always going to be inherent. The purpose of what we've proposed today is to show ways to reduce that risk of harm to those that may be participating or attending parades that involve motorized vehicles. And with that, I am happy to take any questions or comments that you all may have.
Okay, Councilmember Jones.
Thank you so much. It's very in-depth, and I got to erase some of my questions because you answered them. So I still have some, but I do want to say first off, I appreciate your report. Can we first start off with the special certification? I think I'm confused. Is it just the registration, or is there a separate class that like vehicle operators will have to take to be certified to drive that car for a parade?
So we're just asking any drivers to show evidence that they are properly trained to drive that vehicle. So there's not a course, we're leaving that up to them to figure out the way that they're showing that evidence.
So there's no way that we're not saying this, that you need to take this class, because my follow-up question was going to be, where do they get that training?
We're not doing that, no.
So what is the expectation? Like when you say we'd like to see that they're properly, so what do you expect to see?
So again, they should be showing like their driver's license, that they're appropriately, that they have the license to drive that particular vehicle. And then again, if there is a specialty float, there should be a certification that they would most likely be taking, and that they're showing that training so we know that they're able to drive that float and it's something they're experienced in and that they've never not done before.
But we don't have something that we're like, this is that certification. We're trusting that whatever organization, whatever group can fulfill that.
We can certainly connect more with some of the companies that provide floats and trailers and have more conversations with them about what that might look like.
Right. I just wanted to clarify because I just don't know what that certification looks like. And I think if I don't, I want to make sure that the parade organizers know what to get and that they're just not left up to them. And at the last minute, they're like, oh, I don't know. Okay, so then they can find the classes. Now the vehicles, when we talk about the inspection, and you say 30 days, if I get my vehicle inspected in August, and then I am chosen to be a vehicle parade organizer in April, do I need to go back and pay again to get my vehicle re-inspected because it's that 30 days prior?
So we are asking them to go back and get another vehicle inspection, because then that reduces the amount of time your vehicle may no longer have working horn and emissions and whatnot. So we are asking them to go back within 30 days, yes.
Okay, so that's okay. And then everything like police and fire vehicles, they would be required to do the same thing?
So I've spoken with our public safety, especially RPD yesterday, and all of those vehicles are regularly maintained and inspected as it is.
So they'll have that 30-day. Yes. Okay. If there's a professional float company that's hired, is that okay? So that they maintain all of those certifications and registration? Or is it that the parade organizer will have to do all of that on their own?
As long as the organizer would be collecting that information from the float company that they've hired, then that's perfectly fine. That's similar to a question we received, can they work with an entry representative so they're not communicating with all of the particular marching band people that would be in a particular entry, so they can work with a designated representative to collect information as well.
Got it. Now, the morning of, when the parade organizers are checking everything in, because there is extra stuff that they need to do, will they get more time to be able to complete all of those checklists?
So that was a question that was asked during our parade organizer meeting. I think it depends on the scale of the event. A lot of what we're asking for is collecting things leading up to the event and not necessarily day of. But if there's a particular question about a particular parade, we can certainly work with our organizers about that.
Perfect. And then I think the last one that I have is when you talk about guardrails on those floats, what is the thought on egress? Because if we are putting those guardrails up, which I totally understand for safety purposes, how are we handling that they can't just get off, that everybody who is sitting on that float would have to get off as well? I know that you've talked to larger parades, so what did they say? Is it, do they have exit routes? Like, what does that look like safety-wise?
So in our conversations, I haven't come across anyone that's completely enclosed afloat with a handrail or a guardrail, so I would imagine that there is an access point. We can certainly look more into that. But if there wasn't a handrail all the way around, then the people who are on the float need to be where the handrail is. They can still like ingress, egress, get up and out. Then they need to stand near the handrail. The other options are tethers and harnesses and whatnot. But no one has said that it's entirely enclosed and people can't get on or off.
Awesome. I think that's all I had.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. Thanks for working on this. Thanks for getting involved with a national effort to make parades safer across the country. And I'll also say, having gone to some non-motorized parades, they are a very pleasant experience. And so I hope we will continue to see some of those. But with all of that, move to adopt staff's recommendation.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you, Whitney. Really good work on this, and very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Team effort with City Attorney's Office, City Manager's Office, Risk Management, RPD, so on and so forth. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
So that concludes my report today. Happy Juneteenth.
Okay, next we have report and recommendation of EDI.
No report. We have several items pending, 5 of them. We're going to be taking up 2 items next Thursday at 3 p.m. in the council chamber. We will be looking at the Prince Hall Overlay District recommendations and then the one zoning case that's pending there, Z7222.
Okay. Growth and Natural Resources.
We will meet next Tuesday, June 25th. We are starting at 3 p.m. instead of the usual 4 p.m. time for a larger agenda. We're going to discuss litter programs, tree protections, and planting goals, as well as the rezoning case Z3923, the east side of Nile Road.
Okay. Safe, Vibrant, and Healthy Community Committee. We have one item on revenue capture options. I haven't decided yet whether we will have a meeting in August or not, so due to some potential conflicts. So I will announce that at a later date. Transportation and Transit, there is will be a meeting in August. All right, now we go to matters scheduled for public hearing. Our first item is public nuisance abatement, property liens.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. Bryce Abernathy, Housing and Neighborhoods Code Enforcement. I have 6 properties to bring to you today. 3 of them, however, have been paid. So if we can take off 3760 Bastien Lane, 329 Dacian Road, and 6300 Triangletown Boulevard. The first one I'm bringing you today is 105 Bashford Road. We notified the property owner, this was a complaint, notified the property owner there was trash in and around the property. There were 2 dogs on the lot that it looked like maybe they had gotten a hold of trash, and they had strewn kind of trash everywhere. We actually had to have animal control come out to secure the dogs while we cleaned up the area. The second one I'm bringing to you today, 605 Bragg Street. It was high grass, and again, another complaint from the neighbor. The property may be familiar to you. We have kind of continued to maintain this property because the ownership has been kind of MIA, so to speak. We have written it up 12 times since 2018, and that's resulted in 9 public nuisance abatements. And it comes out to about $8,251. And I will note that the taxes haven't been paid since 2019. So, and again, still no real communication with the ownership. And the last one is 619 Cumberland Street. Again, this is another one where the ownership is kind of abandoned the property, so to speak. It's a vacant lot. This was a complaint for high grass and some trash on there. We have written it up 14 times since 2018, but to be honest, that goes back much further. We changed some software in 2018, so I couldn't pull the exact number of how long we've been maintaining that particular property. But this came out to 23 public nuisance abatements, roughly $37,000 in work that's been done over 10 plus years on that property. And that includes demolishing the house as well in 2015. And again, with that one, from Wake County, delinquent taxes since 2011. So that's all three. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions? Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, those are pretty striking numbers. It's a lot of work we're doing on these properties that the taxpayers are bearing the cost of, but also tax not being paid on these properties. Is there any next step? I mean, are we just trapped in a cycle of abating this nuisance over and over again?
Until ownership takes responsibility of the property, that's kind of where we've.
And does Wake County have authority to take over the property when the
I
taxes
think that they
aren't
do
paid?
foreclose sometimes based on non-paid taxes, but I'm not sure where they are in
Where they
the.
are on these ones? Okay. Wow. Okay, thank you for bringing that totality of those numbers. I'll move to approve these three nuisance abatements if there's no other comments.
I have to open the hearing first, and no one has signed up in support or opposition, so I'll open the hearing and close the hearing. You've already made the motion. Do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Councilmember Black is opposed.
So as a follow-up, Councilmember Patton, we will work with Wake County to see at what point we are in the process, because for situational awareness in the years past, that is how we were able to gain some properties for affordable housing opportunities that we're now realizing right now. So this may be an opportunity for us to look at our list and consolidate and see what obviously the county has first dibs on foreclosure, and it's more than likely if they haven't paid us, they haven't paid the county either. We'll kind of see what legally we can do and get a report back to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next item is petition annexation AX 2723.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christopher Golden with Planning and Development, and this is the first of two annexations you're going to see today. This is AX 3723. It's about 13 and a half acres. It's located in a 4900 block of Pool Road. It's zoned RX5. Parking limited, conditional use. It was subject of a recent rezone in 2023. The anticipated use on this property is 181 multifamily units, so we're looking at apartment, and that's what's proposed on the property. This particular property, you can see has water and sewer to the site, and you can see the zoning there. Site plan and topography, it's not located on any sort of floodplain. And you can see an aerial there with some trees and some cleared area on the property, and it's surrounded by residential uses. I will note that there is a service consideration in this particular area, just being outside of the standard NFPA fire response zones for the full fire response. The conditional use on this is just prohibiting dormitories, fraternity houses, and sports uses over 250 seats. If you decide to approve this annexation today, it will be brought into the boundaries of Council District C. And if you have any questions, more than happy to answer them for you.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, no one has signed up in support or opposition, so I will open the hearing and close the hearing. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the annexation for AX 27? 37?
1024, I'm sorry. Yeah, that AX 3723.
Yeah,
so.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is AX 1024.
All right, thanks. Last annexation on the docket today. That's at 4700 block of Tryon Road. You see the parcel on the map there. So this is filling in some of the areas along Tryon Road that have been filling in over the years on the southern edge of Raleigh. It's zoned R4. It's not a large parcel. It's 1.4 acres. And the owners of the property are looking to connect to water and to sewer. I'll show you on the map in just a second that they're adjacent, at least on water, and sewer is pretty close. The proposed use on this property is residential, so we're looking at 8 townhomes. There's an active site plan on that. This is another area that is outside the standard response times. We'll note that the closest stations to this area are about 1 mile east with Swift Creek and with their fire district, and about 1.6 miles from our station in Raleigh. The next slide, you can go ahead and see the utility location. You can see that there's water in Tryon Road and in Avant Ferry Road. And you can see on the zoning, R4, some mixed-use zones there, various different housing types, mostly residential. Site plan and topography here, important to note, while it is on the border of the Swift Creek Overlay District for water protection, it is not in the Swift Creek Overlay District. As you can see on the next map, it's right there on the edge on the north side of Tryon Road. There's an aerial there, so you can see there's an existing structure on the property, and you can see that from the site. So there is a residential area a residential home detached on the site currently. If it is approved today, it'll be brought into the council boundaries of District D. And if you have any questions on that, more than happy to answer them for y'all.
Okay. Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Can you say that thing again about the fire service response times with Swift Creek?
Absolutely. I can. Let me go to the first page here, but it is outside those NFPA standard response times for a full fire response. That is 6 units to the property. There are fire stations that are relatively close, but and I won't speak fully for fire here, but a full response is 6 units. So there are first responders fairly close to this.
Got it. So Swift Creek is a Wake County
It
fire?
is. It's a Wake County Fire District, correct.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, no one has signed up in support or opposition. I will therefore open the hearing and close the hearing. Do we have a motion?
I motion to approve the annexation.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have rezoning Z4323.
Hi, good afternoon. Sarah Shaughnessy, Planning and Development. So this is a request to rezone about half an acre on the north or south side of Carolina Ave, north of Western Boulevard, from R10 with the special residential parking overlay district and the transit overlay district to just R10 SRPOD, so removing the TOD. And Planning Commission has unanimously recommended approval. Here's an aerial view of the site. Again, it's north of Western Boulevard between Hillsborough Street and Powell Drive. And a closer aerial of the site, as you can see, it includes 3 parcels. Here are some views of Carolina Ave. It's a residential street developed with single-family homes, and then also an east-looking view of Western Boulevard where the future Western BRT route will be situated. There are no proposed conditions. The proposed zoning would decrease the residential entitlement. Removing the TOD increases the minimum lot dimensions, so fewer units could be produced on the site. The request is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, but consistent with the future land use map. Consistent policies are related to future land use map and zoning consistency, as well as consistency with the recommended height for the transit station area, which is 3 stories here. Inconsistent policies are related to transit-oriented development, capitalizing on transit access, focusing additional density around transit areas. Again, Planning Commission has recommended approval, finding that the request is reasonable in the public interest because it would unify a split zoning designation on one of the parcels. Again, the TOD is only applied to half of 405 Carolina Avenue and applied to the other 2 parcels. Happy to take any questions before you open the public hearing.
Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, could you just explain, if you know, what is the purpose? I mean, I understand that it would unify the zoning designation. Why is that important?
Yeah, the applicant is here and can speak to that. I believe the owner of the property would like to develop single-family homes on the property. They are aware that they can do that by right, but they were interested in moving forward with removing the TOD.
Okay. Yeah, I'll wait till they speak. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. All right, well, I will then open the hearing. One person has signed up to speak in support. Nobody has signed up in opposition. Samantha Riley.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having me. So the answer to your question about why, even though they can do that, the single family now, why they want that removed, it's actually 3 separate parcels. It's not one total parcel. The original rezoning on this, it was a city-initiated rezoning, the lot sizes were 30 feet in width. So the minimum on a TOD is 45 feet. So this was, in my opinion, an oversight. It had the same PIN number on all the 3 lots. It existed before with a non-conforming structure. It had a apartment building. I think it was a triplex. There was a triplex that straddled over a bunch of lots. So had the client gone to get his permit and done, let's say, what the TOD originally encouraged, he would have been told, his permit would have been denied, and he would have been told that he needed to recombine the lots, and then he could get his permit to develop. It's only 35 feet in width now. He has since moved the property lines around a little bit. And, sorry, I'm a little nervous. Okay, so when the agenda item from August 16th, 2022, Z1822, Western Boulevard, BRT TOD Overlay District D, it says parcels and pins were provided, and it included a 115-page document. So you can imagine that the folks that made that document possible have an extensive amount of experience, master's degrees. My client does not have that. So there is, speaking of, I mean, when you think about equity, he couldn't, that was a foreign language to him. He did not understand. All he was under the impression was that the TOD would just make his lot worth more money. And so he was puzzled to find out that when he went in originally, before the single family was added, that he was not allowed to do the single family. And so, let's see. So just to give you an idea, my client, once he discovered this, his quotes to remedy the situation were $60,000 from attorneys in the area. I got a call from him asking if I could help. I said I would try. I've never done one of these before, so I said that I would try. It was my opinion that had those parcels been identified as 3 individual ones per the plat, that this probably wouldn't have happened because all of the houses on that street would have been selected. But $60,000 is quite a lot of money. My client has really, really been through the ringer on this. He's incredibly distressed. He's waited well over a year and a half to develop his parcels as he had always desired to. He was actually trying to bring up what was before a non-conforming use on the lots up to that code, which would have matched the development pattern on Carolina Avenue. So, do you guys have any questions for me?
No, that's very helpful. Thank you. I wonder if planning staff could speak to how common of an issue this is. Is this a unique case, or are there others that are potentially restricted in the same way?
I am not sure how prevalent this issue is. We could certainly get back to you on that. I think the site, as Sam alluded to, was it was 3 lots, and then there was 1 building spanning the 3 lots. So it was a legal non-conforming use. At the time the TOD was applied in August 2022, one of the criteria for mapping was any parcel within a quarter-mile of future transit service, zoned R10 and developed with multifamily. So that met that criteria, and that's why it was applied. The parcel was since recombined in December 2022, which left that split zoning designation. So that's sort of the source of the error. Again, we can get get back to you with more information on how common that is, because I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. No more questions for me.
Okay. Do we have any more questions? Okay, then I will close the hearing. Do we have a motion? Councilmember Harrison?
Yeah, I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated June 18th, 2024, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Next, we have rezoning Z6223, 1020 Harper Road.
Good afternoon, Hannah Reckow, Planning and Development. So this is a request to rezone one parcel, 1020 Harper Road. It's just under 2 acres in size, currently zoned R4, and the request is for R6 conditional use. The Planning Commission recommends approval 6-1. So location of the site, this is in sort of southwest Raleigh, close to Carolina Pines Park, up in the northwest, and surrounding residential areas of various scales here. Zooming into the site, it is the location of the Raleigh Civitan Club. You can see it has frontage just on Harper Road. There are 3 proposed zoning conditions. One would cap residential development at 16 units. Another would require at least 2 vehicle spaces, parking spaces per principal dwelling unit on the property. And then the third would require additional setback of 10 feet on sort of the northwest and southeast sides of the property. So what that looks like from existing zoning to proposed zoning is smaller lots allowed, smaller setbacks allowed, which increases the number of units that can fit on the site. The maximum number of units is capped by the zoning condition, and then side setbacks would also be that larger value of 10 feet because of the zoning conditions. This request is consistent with the comprehensive plan that includes the future land use map, and there's no urban form guidance for this particular site. Consistent policies are around more compact development, reinforcing the urban pattern, and allowing a greater variety of housing on the site. There were no inconsistent policies identified. And then the Planning Commission found 6-1 voted in support. The one vote in opposition was in response to the addition of the condition requiring on-site vehicle parking, which was not included in the original application. So with that, I can answer any questions you have.
Okay, do we have any questions? Okay, we have no one signed up in opposition. I will open the hearing.
Good afternoon, Mayor Baldwin, members of council. Toby Coleman with Smith Anderson, here on behalf of the applicant Redeeming Development Group. With me today is David Blanton with Redeeming Development. I will go over this briefly. I think I can knock this out hopefully relatively quickly, and if you have questions, feel free to interrupt or otherwise ask. The one thing that I would add to Hannah's excellent presentation is that this property is one of those properties that's subject to a very old plat, and that plat has created, there's 10 ghost lots that legally could be developed, even though it doesn't show up on the GIS. They're sort of non-conforming existing lots that existed, decades ago. And so in some ways, it is technically an upzoning from R4 to R6, but because of the ghost lots, we're actually reducing the number of permitted lots from 10, or units, if you do duplexes, from 20 down to 16, if that makes sense. So that's sort of the driver of the proposal. Here's the current zoning. As you can see, there's a surrounding, sort of a mix of surrounding zonings with R4 in the immediate neighborhood. We did meet a lot with the neighbors. They showed up at the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission asked us to have another meeting with the neighbors. which we did virtually. And they were mainly concerned about making sure that there was on-site parking because the road is relatively narrow. And then we also added a condition, as you can see there, those two red lines that provide that there's going to be side setbacks on the northern and southern end of the property that are equivalent to R4 side setbacks. So in other words, for people that live on either side of the property that are not within the development, you'll have an R4 side setback. And with that, we're available for questions.
Okay. Any questions? All right, I will close the hearing then. Do we have a motion? Councilmember Harrison?
I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated June 18th, 2024, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. That was unanimous as well. Next, we have rezoning Z6323 at 7691 ACC Boulevard.
Yes, this is a request to rezone one parcel, a little over 1.5 acres, that is currently part of the Alexander Place plan development. Rezone that to commercial mixed use, 3 stories, conditional use, and the Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously. So situate ourselves, this is in the northwest part of the city. You can see Glenwood Ave, Route 70, kind of to the south. We have a fairly large shopping center at that intersection, and then residential uses as well, kind of farther to the east. Zooming into the site, you can see the frontage on ACC, it's backing up to that shopping center. I want to make note that roughly everything south of that line is either steep slopes or floodplain, so the buildable area of this site is pretty limited. It's just a view of what that looks like from ACC Boulevard. It is a conditional use district. There's one proposed zoning condition, which is to prohibit the cemetery land use. So the existing to proposed is really an expansion of the uses that are allowed on the site. This particular part of the PD is in its own subsection that only allows office use. So this expands the amount of office use, but also allows other commercial uses and residential uses. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan that includes the future land use map designation, which is regional mixed use. It's also consistent with the urban form map designation of the city growth center. You can see some consistent policies here. It would allow development similar to what exists in the surrounding area and allow a mix of uses and a scale that is appropriate near the residential areas nearby. There is one inconsistent policy, and this is stemming from this being in an area with fire service considerations. So again, that's an existing condition, but something that's noted here through this policy. And then the Planning Commission, again, voted unanimously to recommend approval of this request. What questions can I answer?
Okay, do we have any questions? Councilmember Jones?
I just want to speak really quickly to the fire service concerns. I don't know that I have a specific question in mind, but as I was looking through and the engines that were listed, and they were just out of that NF, I forget the letters, but that standard. However, I did note that there are other Durham firehouses that are close by as well that were not included. I understand why they weren't included because we were just talking about Raleigh. So I would like, I guess, to ask Chief Griffin, if he's still here, how that all plays together and those interlocal partnerships work, and would this be part of that?
Good afternoon, Herbert Griffin, Fire Chief and Director of Emergency Management. We don't include Durham or surrounding agencies because we can't time their NFPA standards, only the City of Raleigh resources. They could be dispatched, but they're not guaranteed to be available to us.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That was the only question I had.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Again, no one has signed up in opposition. I will open the hearing.
Good afternoon, Mayor Baldwin, members of council. Worth Mills here on behalf of the property owner and the rezoning applicant. This is a rezoning of just over an acre and a half in Briar Creek. It's behind the Walmart Super Center over there. Rezoning from a 24-year-old PD district to CX3CU. The applicant already has an approved site plan on this site for an just over 8,000 square foot general building. And the purpose of this rezoning is to be able to locate a commissary kitchen here for bakers, food entrepreneurs, vendors, caterers to be able to go in and prepare food where they may not otherwise have their own brick and mortar commercial kitchen. It is consistent with the future land use map. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan, and Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously. Just to go back to the current zoning, it is within an old finger or a finger of this old Alexander Place PD. You can see it here. As Hannah mentioned, only office is permitted here now. A handful of other rezoning or properties that were within that PD have since rezoned to a number of mixed-use districts, including CX3. This is a copy of the approved site plan ASR 5722, approved in May 2023. Just over 8,000 square feet of rentable space with 33 parking areas. And again, this is planned to be wholly occupied as a commissary kitchen. It is consistent with the future land use maps, regional mixed use designation, and because of the steep slopes and the floodplains, as Hannah mentioned, we have to locate this property closer to ACC Boulevard, consistent with the urban form map. As mentioned, it's consistent with all of the policies in play, but for the fire response policy, it is already within the city limits. And so we think that being able to locate new businesses, a wider variety of businesses here than just office, is reasonable and in the public interest. Happy to answer any of your questions, though. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant? Okay. I will close the hearing then. Do we have a motion?
Yes, and thank you for adding more commissary space. That is my former self in a former life. I worked in commissaries, and I know how important it is for local businesses to have access to that space at an affordable or more affordable rent. So I really do appreciate that. Yes, I'm going to motion to approve. I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated June 18th, 2024, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have rezoning Z6523 at 2321 Crabtree Boulevard. Again, no one has signed up in opposition.
Good afternoon, Bronwyn Radis, Planning and Development. This is rezoning case Z6523, a request to rezone about an acre and a half located at 2321 Crabtree Boulevard. The request is to rezone from office mixed use 4 stories with an urban limited frontage to office mixed use 7 stories with an urban limited frontage and with conditions. The request is consistent with the future land use map, the urban form map, and the comprehensive plan, and Planning Commission recommends approval unanimously. Here's a look at the site and surrounding area. The site is located just west of the Crabtree Creek Greenway parking area and trailhead. And the site is located to the east of the Gateway Plaza shopping center. And you can also see it's located just about a quarter mile to the east of Capitol Boulevard. Here are some views of the site from the street. So the first view is from Crabtree Boulevard. Second view is from Timber Drive. You can see there is an existing office building on the site today, about 2 stories in height. The applicant has proposed one condition which prohibits cemeteries as a use. Here's a look at the change in entitlement. So basically, the change here is an increase from 4 stories to 7 stories. So increasing the amount of building that's allowed to be here, increasing the residential units, office, and retail square footage that can be realized here. The site does have existing access to transit today. Route 3 Glasscock stops right in front of the site, and then Route 1 Capitol Boulevard, again, is about a quarter mile away, and Route 1 is planned for future bus rapid transit. So the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, consistent with the future land use map designation of community mixed use, and also consistent with the urban form map, which has a lot of guidance here. So city growth center, frequent transit area, bus rapid transit area, transit station area, and urban thoroughfare. So the urban limited frontage is going to require that the building be located closer up to the street, require some pedestrian connectivity, and then the height is also consistent with those urban form map designations. So there are a number of consistent policies highlighted here. A lot of these have to do with increasing entitlement in close proximity or walking distance to future bus rapid transit. And there are no inconsistent policies identified. Planning Commission did recommend approval, finding that the request is reasonable and in the public interest because it's allowing for that increased residential entitlement within walking distance of future BRT, and then also allowing for goods, services, and office space to be developed within walking distance of existing residences. The motion for approval did include a request for City Council to direct staff to explore and present options for improving safety where that Crabtree Creek Greenway crosses Crabtree Boulevard. And there's one other thing staff wanted to share. I will invite Ken Bowers up from Urban Projects Group to talk about some potential for a P3 project in this area, unrelated to this rezoning request, but just wanted to daylight it for you all.
Thanks, Bronwyn. Ken Bowers, Planning and Development. So the owner of the property, sponsor of the case, approached us a while ago about the opportunity to expand the site a little bit by acquiring some of the adjacent park property. And most of the park property has some floodplain on it, except for this little segment near where they are. We were cognizant in talking to them about the need to keep development away from the floodplain and not allow further encroachment of development towards the floodplain. We also wanted to look at this potentially as not so much a real estate transaction, but as an opportunity to improve existing conditions on the park property. And so what's been percolating is an agreement by which the city would transfer ownership of roughly a third of an acre of land off the park property to be consolidated with the Loden property. The zoning on the city property is R6 and would not change. And in return for that, the consideration for the property would be some significant upgrades and improvements to the balance of the city of property, including replacing the existing unstriped gravel lot with a new paved lot, incorporating green stormwater infrastructure to treat stormwater impacts from the parking area, the installation of a landscaped area and some park amenities, exercise equipment, bike maintenance facility, and some tree planting to add some trees to what is now primarily grass. So, and of course, the value of all of those improvements would have to be equal to or greater than the appraised value of the property to be transferred. We're telling you this because it's on the agenda for review as consistent with our recently adopted partnership policy to present to the Parks Board for their input on it just 2 days from today, so we didn't want it to be a surprise. What is the relationship to the rezoning case? At this point, the approval of the zoning case does not mean that this agreement would ever come together or be presented to you. So the zoning case stands completely independent from this. There's nothing in the zoning conditions that relies on them having any more land as part of their development site than they currently have. This is subject to the case, and again, the city land is not part of the zoning case. However, we just did want to daylight this for your awareness.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And happy to answer any questions you have for staff before you open the public hearing.
Any questions? Okay, we will open the public hearing then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Samuel Morris with Longleaf Law Partners, here on behalf of the applicant. We'll just go with this one. Here on behalf of the applicant and property owners, Loden Properties, also joined by Henry Ward with Loden, who's here with me this afternoon. I believe y'all are likely familiar with Loden, a local real estate company that's done all sorts of cool projects around town, the Longleaf Hotel, and we'll talk a little bit more in a moment about the Gateway Plaza. So yeah, a local-based real estate company with deep roots in Raleigh that really prides itself on a track record of high-quality development and placemaking here in the city. As you just heard, we are seeking to rezone this 1.67 acre parcel located on Crabtree Boulevard from OX4 UL to OX7 UL. The purpose of this rezoning is to increase that permitted height. That's the only change being requested to allow for a viable multifamily development on this relatively small site with a total unit count in the range of about 130. So that increased height is just to allow essentially a viable multifamily product on what is a constrained site. The request, as you just heard, is consistent with the comprehensive plan, future land use map, and urban form map, and it also received a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission, and it directly advances the city's longstanding goals of locating denser residential building products near both current and future transit infrastructure, as this property you just heard is located within walking distance of several bus stops and is located along a future BRT station area. The property is also very conveniently located adjacent to the city greenway and trailhead on one side, which will allow, and the Gateway Plaza on the other, which is that shopping center located just around the corner at the corner of Crabtree and Capitol. And so it's really situated very conveniently between those two, which will allow future residents of the site to both work, shop, dine, and recreate all within walking distance of the site. The urban frontage and streetscape designations at this location will require any redevelopment of the site to provide enhanced pedestrian infrastructure, particularly providing a sidewalk along Timber Drive where none exists today, as well as some upfit along Crabtree Boulevard. But that sidewalk along Timber Drive is particularly noteworthy because that will help the folks in the residential neighborhood to the south who often enjoy frequenting the Gateway Plaza, creates a more safe pedestrian pathway for those folks to access the Gateway Plaza. We'd also like to note, just in general, that Loden is heavily invested. They are the owners and the company that redeveloped the Gateway Plaza. So they're heavily invested in this area, and you can expect to see the same level of quality and eye towards placemaking that you've seen at the Gateway Plaza with this development. And finally, just to kind of hit on the thrust of this request, which is height, we just want to touch on some of the height policy guidance for this site. The future land use map and urban form map, as you heard, have a very intensive designation here and really sort of lumps this parcel in with the commercial corner there. And as such, has height guidance of up to 12 or even 20 stories based on kind of the emerging urban center context. We're seeking just to go to 7 stories, a 7-story maximum. We believe, falls well within this policy guidance. And there are also kind of several factors that exist on site and within the code itself that will mitigate or kind of protect the area from any concerns about the increase in height. The first is a site-specific consideration, and that is that where the building will have to be located, which is, of course, pushed up towards Timber and Crabtree because of that urban form designation. The ground there sits at about 210 feet, whereas up on Timber Drive, where the nearest residential lots are located, sit at about sit at about 230 feet. So that means our site is sitting about 20 feet below the nearest residential lot. The effect of that is a perceived kind of decrease of about 20 feet or 2 stories. So the site will be sitting about 20 feet lower. So we'll really mitigate the impact of the perceived height from that residential neighborhood. And in addition to that site kind of drop, you also have the UDO required neighborhood transitions, which require a vegetated protective yard that will utilize as much of the existing vegetation along the southern boundary of the site as is practicable. And it also has that minimum building separation requirement relative to the southern boundary line. So it depends on how tall the building is, how far it should be set back, but a 70-foot building, which would be approximately what the zoning would allow for, would require at least an 80-foot setback from that southern property line. And the building, the 2-story office building today, sits about 30 feet from the property line. So it would substantially move that away from the property line, and would, of course, contain that vegetative yard in between as well. And like we just mentioned too, the urban form designation will push the property or push the building up against crabtree and timber. So all of those kind of collectively, we believe, address those kind of height and scale considerations and make the 7-story maximum reasonable. And as Ken mentioned too, the public-private partnership is going on, sort of a separate tract from the rezoning, the kind of considerations and upfit that may occur to that parking lot are sort of on their own track. This is really just focused on the height of the building. With that, we respectfully request your approval and are happy to take any questions you have.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, these are for you. So this is in a frequent transit area, so could develop under the FTDO option with some density bonuses with affordable housing included, but you haven't sought those. Can you speak to why?
Yes, so the FTDO option allows you to increase from, I think, if you have a zoning of 3 or 4 stories, it will allow you to increase up to 5, and that increase has to encapsulate the required percentage. And so, like we said, this is about a 1.67 acre site, and the zoning we're seeking is in order to hit that like 130 unit number, which is very low. It's kind of about the lowest number you can get a project built. And so just getting up from 4 to 5 isn't enough to kind of get the project off the ground, essentially. So that's why we have to zone to 7 to get that additional height. And once you go beyond 5, the whole FTDO bonus isn't applicable anymore. So,
Any other questions? Okay, I will then close the hearing. Do we have a motion? Councilmember Fort?
Motion to approve. I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated June 18, 2024, containing the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Councilmember Jones opposed. Motion passes. Okay, let's see. Next, we have rezoning Z 124. This is the Wake Forest Road assemblage. We have one person signed up in opposition.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Matthew Burns with Planning and Development. This is a request to rezone 4 properties totaling almost 3/4 of an acre from office mixed use 3 stories with the Mordecai 2 NCOD to office mixed use 4 stories, urban limited frontage with conditions, and remove that NCOD. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use map, and Planning Commission recommends unanimous approval. The site's located just northeast of the split between Wake Forest Road and North Person Street. It's fairly close to the Mordecai Historic Park and Historic Oakwood, and nearby uses are moderate and medium scale residential, as well as office and institutional with Peace University, and some commercial uses along North Person Street near East Franklin. Here are some views of the site along Wake Forest Road. And proposed conditions would prohibit certain uses that are normally permitted in office mixed use. They would require buildings that are over 35 feet in height to be set back at least 50 feet from the southeast lot line, require a minimum 10-foot wide protective yard and a fence between 6.5 and 9 feet high between the site and those same 3 adjacent properties to the southeast. They would limit maximum building height in the property to 50 feet and prohibit vinyl siding and permit EIFS siding, but only on the ground story and to cover no more than 20% of the total building facade. So the request would reduce the maximum number of units, partially due to those conditions that I mentioned, which restrict where the building would be located on the property. However, the request would increase office and retail entitlement. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, the future land use map, and the urban form map. And consistent policies are related to the future land use map, conditional district consistency, compact development, transit access, buffering, zoning for housing, and frontage. And there is an inconsistent policy, which is conserving, enhancing, and revitalizing neighborhoods, and that's because the request would remove that NCOD that I mentioned. And Planning Commission found that the request would permit additional housing and mixed-use development in an area that has good transit access, as well as encourage more intensive and more energy-deficient development pattern, and allow more people to live and work in a high-opportunity area. Please let me know if I can answer any questions before we open the public hearing.
Okay. Do we have any questions for staff? Councilmember Jones?
In the backup material, first, thank you. In the backup materials, it says stormwater had found 2 cases of downstream flooding. Can you speak to that?
Yes. So, yeah, stormwater staff. Sure, all right.
I get excited. Sorry. Ben Brown, stormwater staff. Yes, there were 2 cases fairly close to this site of structural flooding. This area of Wake Forest Road, there's a drainage way that's on the right-hand side or east side of Wake Forest Road as you're going north. There are a fair amount of complaints like along this drainage way because it's not part of the right-of-way. It's actually going right down the middle of a bunch of these lots for whatever reason, back when they laid out this street, back when it was laid out. And so there are a fair amount of drainage complaints. So it would carry the code mandated treatment up to the 100-year storm for rate of runoff control.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Any other questions? Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, the 3 single-family homes that are on these lots, are they currently occupied?
I believe they are, and I believe that condition was added as after neighborhood meeting discussions, but I'll let the applicant speak to that. I apologize, they apparently are not occupied.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I will open up the hearing then.
Good afternoon. Toby Coleman with Smith Anderson again, here on behalf of the applicant. With me and will be David Meeker with Carpenter Development Group. His colleague Kate Charlin is also here, as is Chip Dillard with Elmwood Development. I'm going to give some intro on, and then I'm going to hand it over to David. So Matthew did a really good job of explaining the rezoning. Basically, this is already zoned office mixed use. It's in an area of town, many of y'all are maybe familiar, it's basically in the Person Street corridor. It's across the street from, I always have to look up the name of this because I just call it the place with the Yellow Dog Bakery and wine authorities, et cetera. But it's the Person Street Plaza is what it's called, but it's literally across the street. And it's just north, that pink area on the map there is the old A&P grocery store there. So it was a gym and now it's empty, but anyway, it's a fairly commercial area as reflected by the zoning. The request is to increase the height basically from 3 stories to 4 stories. And the reason that we're asking to remove the NCOD is because the NCOD has restrictions on lot size, so you couldn't develop this assemblage as a single lot. It has restrictions on height, caps height at 35 feet. We'd like a portion of it to go to 50 feet. It also has, similar to the lot size, it has a restriction on lot width of 100 feet. So all of that makes it very difficult to develop as, for instance, a boutique apartment building as one potential use. I will say that, we have spent a lot of time, particularly David and Kate, have spent a lot of time talking with the neighborhood. They have a lot of insight because they live there. So this has been a project where this has been a unique project, at least for me as a representative, because when we went into these meetings, we had a lot of neighborhood involvement, and they were very interested in it, as you might guess, because it's Mordecai. What we heard, and I'm sure David would never say this, but there were multiple people that stood up at the meetings and said, well, this property is going to be developed, but if it's going to be developed, I'd like David Meeker to do it. So I think there was a lot of work on our part to try to address with these conditions the concerns of the neighbors to the southeast, which are the residential neighbors, in terms of giving them some landscape buffering and some building setback if we went above the 35-foot height. So the concept of the height limits is just sort of illustrated by this map up there. Basically, if you build a 50-foot building, it has to be set back by 50 feet. If you stay within the current height limit, you could basically just build within the current context of development. I won't go over this. This is some of the information that, frankly, Matthew already shared, and that the Planning Commission found to be convincing that this is in a very walkable area, a high opportunity area, an area with access to a lot of transportation where you'd want to have more dense development. In terms of the Mordecai NCOD, I think I've sort of stated all the reasons why we're asking for the removal. I'll just note that you can see there on the map that sort of dotted line is the boundary. So this is right at the southern boundary. So if you remove this site, it wouldn't really impact the overall integrity of the Mordecai overlay. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to David.
Thanks, Toby. Mayor and council, always good to be here. David Meeker, 301 Fayetteville Street with Carpenter Development. Our company has done mostly adaptive reuse development so far, including the Brookside Center, where Optimus Coffee is, so we know the neighborhood well. Our partner in this project has done 3 similar scale apartment buildings in Durham, so he knows this type of project well. We think this is one of the best neighborhoods in Raleigh. It's why we want to do this project. The walkable restaurant, retail businesses on Person Street are just amazing. The one negative with the neighborhood is there's not a lot of housing options, and so we're excited to bring a different type of option other than buying a really expensive home. This site is also on a busy street, Wake Forest Road. It feels to us appropriate for some more dense development versus being in the middle of a neighborhood on a quiet street. As Toby mentioned, we met with 20 to 25 neighbors for coffee individually leading up to the required neighborhood meetings. Some neighbors were very supportive. Urbanists want density, including Tom Berry, who actually somehow luckily backs up to our property. He's the professor at NC State who teaches on density. So sometimes you get lucky. There were also neighbors who were apprehensive, understandably. Change is always hard and density can be difficult. But as Toby mentioned, this not because of me at all, but having a local developer, someone who has done projects in the neighborhood and has a track record, I think gave people confidence or at least some comfort that it would be done well. And last sort of thought is the neighbors did want us to do a high quality project. Heard that from several people, nice materials and nice windows and that kind of stuff, nice street level building, and we definitely plan to do that. Thanks for your consideration, and let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions? Okay. Hold 2 minutes and 13 seconds. Chris Crew has signed up to speak in opposition.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I do agree with Mr. Meeker that this is the best neighborhood in Raleigh, and that's what part of the concern is. I've been before you many, many times preaching the gospel of preservation. According to the UDO, 33% of Raleigh was rezoned in 2014, and a description of the purpose is laid out in the ordinance, including the following: to conserve and protect the city's natural beauty and setting, including trees, scenic vistas, and cultural and historic resources. What I couldn't ascertain was what percentage of that 33% rezoning resulted in mixed-use multi-story uses. My sense is there's a lot of it. The UDO lays out a description of the benefits of mixed-use districts. Mixed-use districts offer greater flexibility in use while still allowing for appropriate transitions between residential, commercial, and industrial areas. Appropriate being the operative there. Mixed use is intended to provide attractive but compatible buffers for residential districts. This backs right up to the backyards of some historic Oakwood residents, and it impacts the viewshed of both Mordecai and Oakwood. Overlays, according to the UDO, add an extra set of regulations related to an environmental, cultural, or infrastructure feature. As a principle, zoning variances associated with current relevant plans, ordinances, and guidance should only be granted if it can be demonstrated that the zoning was applied in error. You just voted on a proposal where that was the case. The zoning was applied in error, therefore variance is probably called for. And you've recently granted some zoning variances that make a lot of community sense because they specifically support the comprehensive plans in areas that need a boost. And there are others that make sense just because, they add a story or two to the top of a building without other adverse impacts. This just isn't falling into either of those categories. I'd like to ask you to consider how many suitably zoned lots there are in Raleigh that are vacant lots, parking lots, defunct business. What do we do to promote redevelopment of these areas versus removing historic and cultural resources to build something else? I would say, again, this is not fairly close to Oakwood and Mordecai. It touches both of them. So, the logical solution to this developer zoning problem is to work on a property that's already zoned this way and not just a property that happens to be available in downtown. There are lots of good places to do this without negative preservation and neighborhood impacts. You have a trust and a covenant with the people to put community good ahead of the creation of specific profit opportunities for individuals and ahead of arbitrary or capricious changes to our collectively designed and adopted ordinances. Although the reports are unanimous, the Planning Department and Planning Commission reports on this do not make a healthy case for improperly applied zoning. It is not compelling. It is not a complete case that they've made, and it doesn't demonstrate any particular social or community benefits. And of particular concern, too, is they don't give me any confidence that the existing 6-inch sewer line outside of this building can handle an additional 30 to 60 showers and flushes at 7 o'clock every morning. So with no concessions to preservation of historic resources, viewscapes, affordable housing, neighborhood character, or utility impacts, I urge you to deny this in favor of the preservation of two of the oldest and best preserved neighborhoods in Raleigh. Thank you.
Thank you. You have 2 minutes left if you want to add anything. Good, okay. Any other questions? Okay, then I will close the hearing. Do we have a motion? Councilmember Fort?
First, I want to say, Toby, shout out for the A&P reference. I think maybe 3 people in this room know what you're talking about. And I'm one of the 3. Motion to approve. I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated June 18th, 2024, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. It was funny because I was walking by that property the other day, and I was saying to myself, when is somebody going to do something with this? It's been sitting there empty for so long, and it will be good to see activity in creating and building on that walkable neighborhood. So thank you.
And bring back A&P.
Can I just add, but I just would give you a charge, like so many of your projects do feature adaptive reuse. I know from looking at the street view and driving past those buildings in person that not all of them can be adapted and reused, but where there are elements that can be, please bring that component to your project.
Okay, next we have rezoning Z624, 2500 Blue Ridge Road.
Good afternoon, Council. Robert Tate, Planning and Development. This is rezoning request Z624. It's a request to rezone approximately 3.6 acres from office mixed use 3 stories urban general frontage to neighborhood mixed use 7 stories conditional use. This is consistent with the 2030 comprehensive plan and future land use map and consistent with the urban form map. Planning Commission recommends approval unanimously. So here's an aerial image of the site and surrounding land uses. If you're familiar, this is in West Raleigh, just south of UNC Rex Hospital, and largely the land uses that surround the site are medical or office uses. Here's a couple images of the site. Looking at the first, you're looking west along Lake Boone Trail into the site, and the second at the bottom of the screen on the right is looking north along Blue Ridge Road into the site. The applicant has proposed a few zoning conditions, the first being a prohibition on various uses that would be otherwise allowed in the zoning district, a prohibition on drive-throughs and drive-in facilities, a cap on residential and commercial uses. The fourth would be a build-to standard along both Lake Boone Trail and Blue Ridge Road. The fifth would be retail sales would have to be located within or attached to multi-tenant buildings and cannot be located in a standalone building. And then the last condition provided or proposed is a dedication of affordable dwelling units, 5 units at no more than 80% AMI for at least 10 years. And in lieu of those units, they may choose to pay the city a contribution of at least $40,000 per unit. So looking at the existing and proposed zoning, so that the increase in height to 7 stories from 3 stories, and then the increase in residential units. The office square feet does decrease, pointing to those conditions, and then there's a marginal increase in retail square feet. So like I mentioned, this is consistent with the comprehensive plan, however, inconsistent with the urban form map. Here are a list of consistent policies and a couple inconsistent policies that kind of call out that inconsistency with the urban form map, just relating to parking lot, surface parking lots, and pedestrian entrances from both Blue Ridge and Lake Boone Trail. So like I mentioned before earlier, Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously. I'm here for any questions that you have for staff before you open the public hearing.
Okay, do we have any questions of staff? Okay, thank you. I will open the hearing. There's one person signed up in opposition. Okay.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. I'm Jamie Schwather with Parker Poe, 301 Fayetteville Street, here on behalf of the applicant, Northwood Raven. With me is my colleague, Walker Abbott, as well as Jeff Furman and Anthony LaRocca with Northwood Raven, and we're joined by our team member, Brian Purdy with McAdams. This request is to place mixed-use development at a key intersection along the Blue Ridge corridor where all of your comprehensive plan policies direct you to put more people in closer proximity to jobs and resources. The providers along this corridor include UNC Rex, which is just to the north of us in the tower there. DHHS is just to our southwest, and then many facilities that are owned by the state, including NC State facilities and PNC Arena to the south. We're at the corner of Blue Ridge Road and Lake Boone Trail at about 3.5 acres that's currently occupied by a 3-story aging office building. And the pictures that Robert showed were helpful because they don't necessarily look like they're aging, but as we've seen, the return to office is slower than has been predicted, and the hybrid work model and remote work model is relatively here to stay. So you're going to see more office buildings struggling to compete, and they're the perfect place to replace an aging office structure with new residential opportunities. But we do have some challenges that are unique to this site, and they really are the culprit for our inconsistency with the urban form map. We have a 100-foot power line, high voltage power line easement cutting through the site that's important to support all the businesses out there, but it does restrict our ability to put a building right on Blue Ridge Road, which is what your comprehensive plan policies would otherwise indicate. So you'll see our conditions are crafted to try to bring us as close into compliance as we can, but we're not permitted to put a building or structures within that area. Your future land use map indicates this is office and residential mixed use. The urban form map has many policies that Robert cited, the frequent transit area, the transit emphasis corridor, and on that key intersection, again, where all of the policies indicate to place more people, provide more housing opportunities. This, of course, is within the Arena Blue Ridge area plan. The star on the screen there shows that we're right in the center of the Health and Wellness District, and again, just directly adjacent to the Rex Tower, the 7-story tower, where we can provide a new area for folks to live in close proximity, and not only live here, but have an opportunity for some retail that's severely lacking along the corridor. There's no residential uses along Blue Ridge Corridor between 40 and Edwards Mill Road, and the most recent residential use was built about 10 years ago, so it's time for this area to come forward and a really ideally suited property. And so we brought that forward with an NX7 CU request. The NX allows for a variety of commercial uses in close proximity, but in a better way to provide meaningful commercial uses than OX would otherwise, as there's a restriction on the square footage and placement of those retail opportunities in OX. The 7 stories is supported by the comprehensive plan and the land use table. The conditions Robert did a great job in describing, but note that because this property is only about 3.5 acres, the 260 units is an appropriate density, and we've limited ourselves to 5,000 square feet of commercial use as well. The custom build to that was read off is to mimic the urban limited frontage. So that condition number 4 would provide the same build to that an urban limited frontage would, were we able to commit to that. But again, we can't because of that power line easement. So we're trying to do as best we can to bring us in closer alignment. And then of course, the dedication of the 5 affordable units. We've heard the council's request for more affordable to consider that in cases, and we're very proud to bring that forward today. I did want to provide that although we don't have the frontage, the street section that's required for both Lake Boone and for Blue Ridge would require this 4-lane avenue divided by the code. So again, you're still going to have the bicycle facility separated, the required sidewalk minimums, and all of those improvements that would be done along our frontage. And with that, the case is overwhelmingly consistent with a comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission recognized this and voted unanimously to recommend approval. Again, that only inconsistency is the urban form because of the power line. I'd also like to note the 95% job employment score, putting people close to employers, as noted in page 9 of your staff report, really just drives home why we want to put people in this location, and excited to work with you all to do that. So with that, I'll stay available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Jones?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I did just want to shout out I appreciate you talking to Rex Hospital. This area has my heart. I know we've been dealing with it recently. And the concern there is to bring people closer to where they work and have them live there. So I do appreciate what you're doing with affordability in this to make sure that those that are right across the street as nurses, doctors, everything have that option to participate in housing close to where they work. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have one person signed up in opposition, Gwendolyn Smith Carr. Is she here? Okay. Any additional questions? Okay, I will then close the hearing. Do we have a motion?
Yes, hang on one second. I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated June 18th, 2024, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Okay, and then we have Comprehensive Plan Amendment CP 124, Jones Franklin Road.
Thank you. Brown and Redis, Planning and Development. So this is Comprehensive Plan Amendment CP 124 for Jones Franklin Road, specifically between Fort Sumter Road and Tryon Road. This is a request to redesignate the road on the street plan map and the comprehensive plan from a 6-lane divided avenue to a 4-lane divided avenue. And Planning Commission recommends approval unanimously. Here's a look at the extent of that segment of Jones Franklin Road, again, extending from its intersection with Fort Sumter Road to the north and Tryon Road to the south. It crosses through 440 and 40. It also crosses through some FEMA flood zone and the Swift Creek watershed. So here's a look at what the change to the street plan map would look like. Again, modifying from 6-lane divided to 4-lane divided. Just want to note, this is a city-initiated request, and current traffic counts and projected traffic volumes can be accommodated through the 4-lane cross-section. And here's a look at that 4-lane cross-section. Overall right-of-way width is 109 feet. It does include the separated bike facilities and sidewalk. And then comparing that with the 6-lane divided avenue, you'll see this cross-section also has those separated bike facilities and sidewalk. However, it does have the 3 lanes on either side of a median or center turn lane, and the overall right-of-way width is a little larger with the 131 feet. There are several consistent policies here having to do with supporting walkability and bikeability, and then also protecting natural water features, protecting watershed, not having impervious surface when unnecessary. No inconsistent policies have been identified. Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously, finding that the request reduces unnecessary impervious surface in environmentally sensitive areas and creates a streetscape that's going to be more comfortable and safer for bicyclists and pedestrians. I'm happy to answer any questions you have for staff before you open the public hearing.
Okay. Any questions? Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, hi. I was just curious if you could speak to the catalyzing event that caused the reassessment.
I think the first thing, there was a rezoning request along this segment of Jones Franklin Road. So I believe that kind of led to this city-initiated request. However, I do think the projected traffic volumes in the capital area metropolitan planning organization, or CAMPO's reporting, shows that the traffic can be accommodated through the 4-lane cross-section. So I don't know if transportation partners would want to
I
add
just
any
want
to that.
add to that. It was a rezoning case that we had on Jones Franklin Road, and when I was looking at the frontage and what was required for the property owner, I was concerned that they were going to create so much impervious surface because of these requirements and have to cut down a lot of trees. And so then I was able to work with the Transportation Department, which then worked with the North Carolina Department of Transportation to figure out, is there a way to reduce the number of lanes that were planned. So I'm really excited about this. I use this road all the time, and I don't believe we're going to ever need, I hope not, 6 lanes there.
Got it. Okay, thanks. I have blocked out, I guess, that case. So I forgot about that. But yeah, happy to support. Thanks.
Okay. All right, no one has signed up in support or in opposition, so I'm going to open the hearing and close the hearing. So do we have a motion? Councilmember Harrison?
Yeah, again, thank you so much to Transportation for working on this with us. I think this is a great move. So I'm going to motion to approve the new 4-lane road on Jones Franklin.
All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next we have report of the mayor and city council. Start with Mayor Pro Tem.
I just wanted to say happy Pride. It is Pride Month, and this week and this weekend there are many Pride events happening in Raleigh. There is going to be the Out Raleigh Pride Festival on Fayetteville Street. Councilmember Fort and I will be there to read the Pride Month proclamation, and so I hope you'll all join us. It's a great event, just keeps getting bigger year after year. And I also want to give a special shout out to the Raleigh Pride organization. They saw a void in our community, I think it's 5 years ago now, and they have really organized all the different groups that were already putting on Pride events. They've organized the small business community, and they're working with the city and the county. And I think their presence has been huge, particularly, in a city like Raleigh that often feels like a blue dot and surrounded by red. I think it's important to remember and bring visibility to these Pride events and these communities. So I will be out there. Hope to see you. And other than that, no report.
Okay. Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, a handful of things on my end. A couple good things from the consent agenda. We approved $1.2 million in enhancements for the studios at 2800 for facade work, roofs, asphalt repair, and that's providing long-term and traditional housing for folks who would otherwise not have access to it. We also set a public hearing for July 2nd in the afternoon for major amendments to the annual action plan, and we're applying for Emily, am I getting this right? Make sure I get this right. $14.2 million to be used toward construction of affordable housing and other community investments. Thanks, got it. I got the head nod. July 2nd, everybody, come out. A couple other things. I wanted to thank transportation staff for installing a pedestal seat at a bus stop at Perry Creek Road where I saw a need. They responded really quickly, so thanks to them for that. I've also been involved in some conversations with my constituents up in North Raleigh who have fallen prey to some predatory parking practices with our private parking providers in downtown. And I would love a manager's update about the extent of our authority to regulate or enforce good practices with our private parking providers. Just like what regulatory power do we have over signage and that type fee levels and that type of thing. And then the last thing is sort of a call to action for any of our staff members who design public spaces, whether they're buildings or open spaces. I've recently discovered this new app called Roll Mobility. It's particularly serving like a subpopulation of wheelchair users. And it's sort of like Yelp for the accessibility of spaces. So it will describe both the general accessibility of the space and the bathroom accessibility. And we know that a lot of our buildings and spaces conform to sort of the letter of the law and the requirements, but maybe overlook some other things that might make a space more pleasantly accessible, like the weight of the door or the tightness of the turning radius. And so if you go on that, you can look at all sorts of cities, but there are some for Raleigh city facilities. There's some comments there, and I think they provide the type of feedback we might not otherwise get on a survey. So I think it's a good tool, and I hope you all will take a look.
Hey, Councilmember Black.
Just a couple things for me today. I wanted to start off by saying happy Eid to everybody who celebrated over the weekend. I also want to follow in the footsteps of Mayor Pro Tem Melton and wish everybody a happy Pride and remind everyone that Pride started as a riot in 1960s during the Stonewall Uprising. And in honoring where we have come from, where we are, and where we're going, we have to remember that we're still fighting. We're still doing work to protect communities that are still very vulnerable from different thoughts about what should be and what shouldn't be. But I'm choosing to live in the honor of people like Marsha Johnson, a Black trans woman who was integral to starting the LGBTQ rights movement back during that time. So happy Pride. Really excited to come out this weekend and to celebrate and be in community. I also want to send some love to the Double Dutch Fest that happened over the weekend. It was a really wonderful festival in conjunction for Juneteenth that's coming up. I got to go with Councilmember Harrison. That was really fun. And see some local musicians that are really, really on the come up and really, really making this city creative and wonderful in so many different ways. I'm really good friends with the organizers and many of the musicians that performed, so good job, you guys. Hope to see you do it again next year. In conversations and the experience that we had during Double Dutch, I want to kind of uplift what I brought to council several months ago around the Music Generator program, specifically on cultivating a musical economy that helps people in the music industry be able to grow their talents and also participate in the creative economy here. I know that's something that me and Jane were talking about that last night, so I'm looking to you, Jane. Let's make it happen, figure out where we can get it going. I also want to wish everybody happy Juneteenth. It's tomorrow, so happy Juneteenth, everyone. And also happy Father's Day to everybody who has a father and was able to celebrate over the weekend. Me personally, Father's Day is really hard. June is also Men's Mental Health Month, and my father, as I've told you, I lost him to suicide about 22 years ago. So I just think it's really important to, honor the people that you know, the people that you love, that are in your lives, that are father figures, and the people that may not be here, and also really be thinking holistically around mental health, specifically for men. And that's all.
Councilmember Jones.
First off, I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to the communications department. We had our last scheduled tour on Friday, and it was amazing. We spent the last year and a half going department by department, and this was the last scheduled one we had. So thank you for that. I know balancing the different ways our residents receive information is tricky, and you all have done a wonderful job at reaching so many people. So thank you. The next update I want to give is on CACs. So I met with our CAC leadership for a second time on June 6th, along with staff, to provide possible next steps for our partnerships with CACs. The chairperson is bringing these ideas back to the leadership board this month, and we will continue our conversations into the summer. I just want to take this opportunity to make it very clear that there are ongoing discussions happening with CACs, and as opposed to before, we are following their lead as we develop the next chapter. And then lastly, thank you to La Cucina Italian Restaurant for hosting June's District E Community Conversation. We will be at this location every month moving forward through October, so please mark your calendars now for the second Wednesday of every month from 6 to 8 p.m. at La Cucina Italian Restaurant. Thank you.
Councilmember Fort.
All right, I'm doing double duty, so I'm going to start with Councilmember Branch's items. His first one is a request. Can we receive a presentation on how much we spend per unit and all that is included for affordable housing? So, does that make sense to you? Or maybe you can follow up with him in terms of what, okay, what do you mean specifically? Second, he attended a listening session with the Raleigh Hispanic entrepreneurs. It was a great conversation and a report to come from the event. Councilmember Jones and Patton also attended. His last items, vehicles are in the way of trucks during the pickup and contamination of trash. Items which should not be in the trash for special, but should be put aside for a special pickup. So that may be something to follow up with Solid Waste Services and I guess come back with a report on that. So those are his items. For mine, I have one request for the city attorney's office. One of the things that we've been doing pretty regularly is dispersing money from the council contingency fund. But we don't really have a system to do like any types of checks and balances or audits of some of these organizations or any of the audit organizations that are coming forward. And because it is, public money, we probably need to look at what is our mechanism to kind of track the money that's being dispersed so that if we're going to be held accountable, at least we've got some system to account for how the money's been spent by the organizations. Because I think with the grant process, there's more of a system of checks and balances, but we really don't have anything in place for council contingency money that's being dispersed. So probably need to look into that. And then my second one is kind of piggybacking off the Moore Square event. I know we had talked about it a year or two ago, how we work with the unsheltered population to provide opportunities for showers, and it seems like that happened at Moore Square, went over very well. So how do we look at, partnering with other organizations or looking at some way of kind of having a more regular schedule for that? I know that they've been doing it over in Durham for a while, but providing some opportunities for a more regular opportunity for our unsheltered folks to have opportunities to get showers. And so if we could follow up on that, those would be my two items.
Okay. Councilmember Harrison.
So two items. I missed the work session last Tuesday, but I did follow up and I watched it. So I wanted to just say a couple things here. I have heard a lot of concerns around the South Street potential closure. And I just want to air that in terms of residential concerns about a number of street closures. I think it's Hargett and then Cabarrus that turns onto West and then South Street potentially. So these are items that I really believe we need more community engagement around. I know that there's some tours being planned for council members to see this area, which I'm really looking forward to. And I believe there's some kind of pop-up community engagement opportunity that will be planned. A couple items of data that would be useful, and I don't know if this would be in a manager's report or in a future presentation, but any information on traffic, so impacts to the traffic flow, as well as market data on venue sizes. So we were given some information about what venue size is needed for Red Hat, but I just would like to better understand what are the trade-offs and possibilities for different size venues and how that would affect the street system. So that piece. And then I did have a great time Saturday night at Double Dutch. That was fantastic. And it reignited my memory around Councilmember Black's initial request for some musical residencies in the city. So this would basically provide space for musicians to come. It could be hosting acts that are local, regional, global. And we had a great conversation about that actually at Crank Arm Brewing recently. I was there with Heather McDougall from our Office of Strategy and Innovation. We talked about what this could look like, how we can really help downtown thrive. And I think that's what we saw Saturday with Double Dutch, that kind of a scene. And we need more of that. And we need more spaces, I think, for young people who, maybe all ages spaces. So, a lot of times venues, depending on, if it's a bar or something like that, you have to be 21 plus. Is there an opportunity to think about folks that are younger than that as well? So I think my request is a manager's update about both the initial request that Councilmember Black had. I'm not sure where we ended up with that. And then also if Heather's office is working on anything in this space, any ideas for how this could look, that would be helpful.
Okay. Couple of things. I just wanted to thank the committee and our Dix Park team for hosting our Juneteenth celebration on Saturday. It was awesome, and they did a great job. The 82nd Airborne Chorus was there, and that was very entertaining, to say the least. Yes, it was. So I just want to acknowledge them and thank them for all their hard work that went into it. Councilmember Patton, I saw you were there. I'm not sure I saw anybody else. She popped in. Okay, might have missed you. But again, just thank you for that. South Street, I think one of the best things we could do is continue to reach out to NCDOT and treat that with urgency, because we could avoid a lot of potential conflict if we can just do a wraparound. And I think that would satisfy quite a few people. I also got a message from somebody today asking if it might be possible to open up the convention center lobby on the day of the Pride celebration. There's concerns it's going to be like 99 degrees out, and they're like, is there any way we could have some access just to get out of the heat? So I'm just bringing that up. I don't know if anybody is at the convention center. I don't know if it's even possible with cost and whatnot, but wanted to just follow up. Up at the, yeah.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Carrie Painter, Raleigh Convention Performing Arts Complex. Pride is this year taking place on the plaza as well of the PAC. They have rented that space. And I know there are events in both buildings. So I will look into, is it easier and more effective to use the PAC's restrooms because you're already there for part of the event, or the convention center, which is a little more off the tour? But I'm happy to look into all the calendars and circle back.
Mm-hmm. With the heat, there's concern.
It's hot.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be record hot. So I appreciate, and it's dear to my heart. So let me figure out how we can do something.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I know it will be appreciated. Okay, that's all I had for today. Next, we have appointments.
Good afternoon. First, we have Design Review Commission, two quick announcements here. I'll bundle Design Review Commission and Planning Commission together. This is just for informational purposes only, no action needed. During their June 3 meeting, the Board of Commissioners reappointed Patrice Gilmore to the city's Design Review Commission and reappointed Roberta Fox to the Planning Commission. So just wanted to make you aware. Arts Commission, 1 regular vacancy. Ladarius Hicks received 4 votes. Billy Warden 1. So that will be carried over to your next ballot. Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board, 2 regular vacancies. Community category. Councilmember Patton nominated Tammy Loza, and I did include in your agenda packet some follow-up information since your last meeting. Philip Lynn, whose reappointment desire was unknown at the time of the last meeting, he has since reached out and says he does not wish to be considered, which is why he was not included on the ballot. Also during the last meeting, an option to elevate the sole community alternate member, Abigail Mulry, was discussed due to the resignation of a regular member. Ms. Mallory has not attended any meetings since her appointment last year, and staff was requested to make another attempt to reach out to her, but did not receive a response. Therefore, you still have 2 vacancies for consideration. Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board, 1 regular vacancy. Mayor Baldwin nominated Elizabeth Gardner, and Mayor Pro Tem Melton nominated Stephen Breckbeal. So that will be carried over to your next ballot. Raleigh Convention and Performing Arts Centers Authority, 2 regular vacancies. Carolyn Briggs-Gall received 3 votes, David Clegg 4, Kenny Garcia 0, Jill Heath 4, Christine McDonald 2. And I did want to mention at this point, I think it would be helpful to go ahead and announce another vacancy that was planned after the break, since you're discussing it right now. And so that can be considered all together. And that would be Derek Wittenberg's term. He's not eligible for reappointment due to length of service. And so I wanted to go ahead and just add that in here. And we can bump that vacancy number back up to 3 for the next ballot. Down to nominations.
Can I just ask, I'm sorry, so we've got 3 openings there, and how many folks are in the group right now?
Let me pull up the roster here. Oh, under consideration?
Yeah.
Oh, candidates, okay. We have 5.
5.
5.
Okay. And one of them received 4 votes?
2 individuals received 4 votes. That was David Clegg and Jill Heath.
Okay. I don't know if anyone would want to take a vote on those 2 to see if we have 5 votes, just to try to move this one along. Say that again? Sure. So I'll make a motion, I guess just for David Clegg, if there's a second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, and I'll make a motion for Jill Heath.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, good idea. I hate seeing vacancies go that long.
To wrap up this item really quick, if you don't mind, so that I'll go ahead and still that remaining vacancy that I just kind of slipped in there. Would you like to keep the remainder of the candidates on the ballot for that?
I think so, since we didn't have anyone else that had more than.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
will do. Oh, and so back to Arts Commission.
Motion for Ladarius Hicks for Arts Commission.
I'm going to add that the reason why I selected no preference on my ballot is Billy Warden is a longtime arts advocate and has been a substantial contributing member. I have no idea why he's not submitted an application or why we can't get up with him. I don't know if it's a family issue. Folks go through stuff, so I would prefer, out of respect to his service, to give him some time. And so I would vote no right now, but it's nothing against you or your nominee.
I mean, we'd waited like 3 council votes for it, so I'm just like a little confused too.
I will be happy to reach out to him and just let him know that if he's not, if he doesn't submit something, he won't be reconsidered.
I mean, we do have one person that's really eager and is ready to has submitted something. So I would still like to take a vote. If you guys want to vote no and have it come back on the next ballot, that's fine. Somebody has to second.
I did, second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion fails 4-3. So we'll bring that back, and I will follow up with him.
Okay, we are back down to nominations. Community Engagement Board, there's various recommendations here. Term of 3 individuals are expiring. First is Jeff Aguiar, who fills the staff-nominated renter slot. His attendance is included with the agenda material. Staff is recommending his reappointment. The next are the District E and A slots. Both of those current members do not wish to be considered for reappointment. Councilmember Jones's nominee for the District E slot submitted an application after the agenda was published, and I did see that she shared that with council members. And once a nominee is named by Councilmember Black for the District A slot, council can vote on that replacement as well. So it would be appropriate to consider, if you would like, the renter and District A slots today.
I move to
E slot.
reappoint the renters, the renter. I don't want person.
Second, Jeff Aguirre.
Yes.
Do we have a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you.
And can we do Councilmember Jones's too? I move to appoint the District E slot.
Suzanne Martin.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed? All right.
I did just want to jump in. I think a resignation was received from the District B appointee as well, Leon Cook. Has that made it to you?
It has not.
Okay. Well, whenever it does flow its way to you, I'll go ahead and sort of proactively nominate Ramon Galloway, who should have an application in Granicus at this time.
Ramon
Galloway.
For the District B slot. I will ask around with staff. Would you like me to go ahead and put that on the ballot or for efficiency purposes or? Sure. We'll get that all bundled together. Design Review Commission, 1 regular vacancy. Resignation has been received from regular member Dane Thompson. Past practice has been to elevate the longest-serving alternate, which is Jason Dale, and declare an alternate vacancy.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, so that newly created alternate vacancy will appear on your next ballot. Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board, 1 regular vacancy, professional category. Unfortunately, a vacancy has occurred due to the passing of regular member Elvis Tanyi. Past practice has been to elevate the sole alternate professional, which is Kathy Monteiro, to a regular slot and declare an alternate vacancy. No attendance to report here since no meetings have occurred since her recent appointment.
They had it. Oh. I was just going to say they had 1 meeting, maybe since the time of this agenda, and she did attend. So she has a perfect attendance record so far.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Do you want me to repeat it?
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
There's been 1 meeting. They had their June meeting, perhaps since the time this was compiled, and Kathy Monteiro did attend.
Okay, great.
So I
So
move to move-
motion to approve.
Yeah. Move her up.
Stormy, you want to?
Yeah, I made a motion to move her up, elevate her to a regular seat.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
So that newly created alternate professional vacancy will appear on your next ballot. And lastly, Raleigh Transit Authority, 1 regular vacancy. Resignation has been received from Bryce Connors. Past practice has been to elevate the longest-serving alternate member, which is Nardra Johnson. Per council's request, an explanation of her attendance has been provided for your consideration.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed? Okay,
That's it.
Okay. Next, we have the report of the city attorney.
Mayor, members of council, I don't have a report, but if I could take a moment of personal privilege. My daughter graduated on June the 9th with a 4.25 GPA. I want to thank the council for the opportunity they have afforded me, and in turn, my daughter. As I shared earlier, she's a big softball player that had a great season, ended 24-3. And she's hit a couple of home runs, as Marshall knows, throughout the season. So again, thank you.
Did you just embarrass her?
Yes. Probably.
Well, please tell her congratulations and keep up the great work. Okay, and now we have the report of the city clerk.
As the last item standing between you and recess, you have several packages of minutes submitted for consideration of approval.
So move to approve.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Got that. Anything else? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. It's a long meeting today, but we got a lot done. So I just want to thank everyone for being here. We'll see you back in July, and this meeting is now adjourned.